This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Boxing Day. Welcome to a very cloudy and wind-filled morning here in the Sabi Sands in South Africa. I am Noelle, and on camera we have Ferg. Hello, Ferg. And this is Safari Live. We are live. We are interactive. You can follow us on hashtag Safari Live on the Twitter or on YouTube chat. Now, we're not quite sure what we're up to this morning. We did have a big, beautiful male elephant to show you, and then, of course, as Murphy would have it, off he goes into the thick bushes, and we cannot see him anymore. Part of it has to do with this wind, and part of it is he knows exactly when we start doing countdown in my ear, and then I swear he giggles to himself and just moves away, and then we can't see him. So our kind of tentative plan, not really a plan, the sticks were seen around Chitwa area, Vessels area yesterday. So I'm hoping what they're going to do is, instead of move west over to Aratuza, which is far to our west over here, that they're going to move north into our area. So we're just checking a little bit of our western boundary area, and then we're going to check our southern boundary area. And then we're going to see whether or not any of our cheeky little leopards will pop up. Scott's going to see if maybe Tundi's around and maybe the cubs around after our epic sighting last night of that little cub finally poking his head out and then playing with Mum. But we'll see. You never know. We might get something amazing, or today might just be trees and birds. We'll have to wait and see. Now, while we're waiting to see what happens with Scott's adventures, you all are going to be with me on my vehicle with my adventures. And it is going to involve, hopefully, some tracking if we can find some tracks, but also maybe we come up with some more Ellies. There's loads of Ellies on the property yesterday. We did get some rain last night, so our Christmas gift yesterday was all those wonderful sightings that we had. And then last night, the Bush's Christmas gift was a little bit of rain, which was good. Now, it looks as if it might rain again sometime today. I don't think maybe too much this morning. Well, actually, I'm holding thumbs, not too much this morning. I really don't want to get wet on Cave Drive today. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. I really think that it just needs to wait. Lady Starfire saying you posted a picture of Tesla with all of us, the Christmas photo. I can't wait to see it when I get done with Drive. Thanks so much for letting us know, and I hope your family is good and you're good and you all had a wonderful Christmas day, and I hope everyone else had a very wonderful Christmas day. I was very surprised. I got a phone call last night. My whole family was at home and they watched the show last night, which was super exciting. They don't really get a chance all the time to see it, so that was my little personal Christmas gift. So thanks, Mom and John and all my siblings. And I think maybe, just maybe, we're going to have a little bit of luck with this cheeky leopard Tundi and her super cute cub. So let's head on over to Scott and see what he has to say.
Sadly, no joy with Tundi and her little cub. Popped into the den already and there was no sign of Tundi. Now beginning to search for her or anybody else or anything else, not anybody, any other animal really. My name is Scott, I'm teamed up with Senzo on camera, and as I'm sure you've gathered, it's a bit of a cloudy, miserable morning here, but we actually need miserable weather, and as much as I'd hate for rain during the safari, we can't be fussy because it is abnormally dry at this time of the year, so any little bits of rain we can get will be appreciated and much needed. So, Noelle's going to be checking the western portion of our property. I'm going to be checking the eastern portion, and hopefully between the two of us we'll come up with something. I'm guessing she's already mentioned, but I'll just reiterate, it's just the two of us out this morning. There's no feeds from the Mara. They are getting a morning off today. So we'll just be doing a 3-hour safari based from the Sabi Sands. Now, we did get a little bit of rain last night, so I'm not too sure how much, which is great for the vegetation. And it's not really great for finding tracks of animals. The sand tends to kind of solidify. The rain almost kind of glues it together, and until a few vehicles have driven along the roads and churned everything up and created a fine powder again, it means if a leopard had have walked down this road, unless it was like during the rain, it's going to be very difficult to see any sign of them. Lions a little bit less so. I mean, they're heavier animals, so a little bit easier to track. And in the overcast light, it also further complicates the matter because the tracks are hard to see when the light is flat. So we've got our work cut out for us. I'm hoping Tingana, a big dominant male leopard, pops back onto the property. He kind of was on his route back into this area. He was to the east of us. So that's something to think about. Hopefully we'll be able to find the father of that cute little cub. Alrighty. Virginia, you'd like to know if there's been any action at not just the leopard dens, but also any of the Hyena Den sites. And sadly, Virginia, it seems like all of the Hyena dens that have been used in the past on Juma are inactive at the moment. And I think there is a Hyena Den that's active on Buffelshoek, the property to the north of us. I have heard a few vehicles calling in on our radio frequency something about a Hyena Den, but sadly we don't have access to that property. So it could well be that our clan of hyena that ordinarily spend time here has moved a little bit further north for the time being. Hopefully they'll pack at some stage. Nice soft sand there, but no tracks. Alright, our signal's a little bit shaky, so we are going to be sending you back to Noel.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about the little gremlins that are popping up. We haven't made it very far since we last saw you. We are just pulling up next to some impala who are busy fighting with each other, so I'm hoping that they pull their antics for you now. Now, because it's really windy, again, their sense of smell and their hearing is impaired because of this, and they're just starting to get their eyesight back as it's just starting to get light. So some of the jumping around has to do with the fact that they're excited because they made it through the night, and some of it has to do with the fact that they're just nervous in general, and also nervous in general because it's a lot of males in this bachelor group. So you've got ones with large horns and ones with small horns. You've got many different ages in here. So sometimes what happens is if a smaller one, a younger one, sort of catches a wobble because of the wind, an older one might take advantage to sort of try and fight with him a little bit. They're not trying to fight to kill with each other right now. It's more to build up muscle memory and dominance within the structure of the bachelor herd. Beautiful. You can actually see, we talk about it often, but of course we get new viewers all the time, and we do a lot of information, so we'll talk about it again. You can see how these impala are looking a little bit dark on top. That darkness has to do with the fact that they're cold. It is chilly this morning. I'm wearing a jersey. So what they're doing is they're lifting up the hair around their body. It's called piloerection. It's a specific form of piloerection. And then the hot air is now circulating closer to the body when they do that. We do similar things when we get cold or scared. The hair on our arms or on the back of our neck stands up, and that's a reflex from when we used to be more hairier in our evolutionary tract, and we needed to get warm. Now we wear fleeces and jackets and long pants, although I'm not a really firm believer in long pants. I like short pants. It's too nice to wear long pants. Now impala are quite interesting for me because impala haven't really changed over several million years. They had an ancestor. Antelopes and deer had a common ancestor several million years ago, and then antelopes broke off, and deer as we know them today broke off. And impala, the way that when they broke off, their structure, their horn structure with the males and the lac with the females, and the way that their body functions and all their gland systems has pretty much stayed the same. They're actually quite a perfect antelope species. They're a medium-sized antelope species. They eat both grass and leaves leaves, so they can function very well in the ecosystem, as long as the drought doesn't affect both grass and plants, and they do a good job. Edward, good question. You're curious to know why the impala have those markings on their bum. Edward, there's several theories behind those markings. One is that the black parts, so on the sides and then down the middle of the tail, is dark like that to attract ticks away from the very sensitive bum area. Obviously, if this male lifts up his tail, and of course he turns around, you're going to see it's a lot less fur that's under there, and it's the tick load gets in there too much, and it's too heavy. It's bad for them. The other reasoning has to do with flash coloration. So you're seeing the black here, and then when they run away, they lift up the tail, and then it's white, and then that attracts either the eyes of the other impala or possibly of the predator. Those are the sort of theories around it. I'm trepidatious to say that it's completely correct, because we as humans don't necessarily understand everything that goes on out here. All we can do is postulate, although the tick theory sounds somewhat accurate to me in my head. But again, I'm not Mother Nature, so I'm not quite sure why she would do that. It's an interesting thought. I mean, we could come up with our own ideas. I don't know, maybe if you have your own idea as to why they're like that. Bobby, that's a good question. Is impala poo like deer poo? Bobby, I have not seen deer poo in years, not since I was a little kid. But the way that white-tailed deer look and how they are structured is very similar to impala. So I would guess that, yes, it is similar. I'm actually looking around me now to see if I can find some impala dung, and I'm not seeing any at the moment. But if I find some, I will show it to you, and then you can tell me if it looks the same as deer poo. There should be some down the way. Now, we're going to head over. We're almost to our western boundary. I still haven't picked up any tracks. I'm trying to think when this rain came, and I'm thinking it was sort of middle of the night, and that will help when we do pick up tracks as to age of tracks. Obviously anything that's underneath the rain is going to look super old if it's still present, and anything that's on top will then have a different freshness level. Even with this wind as well, really, really fresh tracks won't have been affected by the wind as much, whereas tracks that have been around for a couple of hours will definitely have been affected by the wind. Now, the road that I'm going to travel on just now is super bumpy, which can make it hard for Ferg to stabilize our image on the camera, so just take a thought on that one as we come down. Now, it's not my favorite road to drive, but it is important to check boundaries when you're doing things like looking for lions, because the portions that we work on, they're not small by any means, but the lions have a larger area in which they traverse. Also, this is a very good area to pick up on wild dog. So I think while I'm busy going down the bumpy road, let's head over to Scott and hope that his traversing is not as bumpy as ours.
Yes, it is a little bit less bumpy here, and I hope Noel does get lucky with some tracks on our western boundary. Now, sadly, my game drive radio is not working properly, so I didn't copy any updates about Tingana, but Noel did, and apparently I think he has been located, and he is in fact heading towards Juma. So that's some great news. We are going to continue towards our eastern boundary in the opposite direction of Noel, and very often in the past when you would come back into the west from the east, you would take this road that we're about to drive on. It's called Central Road. So I'm just going to head towards the junction of our boundary and where this road meets, and hopefully he's going to just pop out straight in front of us, and then we can spend the morning with him, which will be absolutely awesome. So, some good prospects. Okay. Well, Nicky just tells me he's moving southwest, but not where from, so it doesn't give me too much to work with, but at least he's still heading in a westerly direction, albeit south and west. So good prospects, and even if it means we have to linger along our eastern boundary for a while in the knowledge that he is slowly coming towards us, it will be a worthwhile affair. another thing to remember is that we are very fortunate by having these small vehicles, so it's quite useful for us to be as close to a leopard as possible when it does come into our property, just to ensure that there's a better likelihood of us being able to follow the animal off-road and the other guides not losing it in their big safari limousines, which are far more tricky to negotiate off-road than our little vehicles are. Woohoo! Haven't found much sign of anything since we've been on the move. One or two hyena moving down the roads in terms of their tracks, but that's fairly common. Hyenas move huge distances every night in search of possible meals, so you very often see their tracks on a lot of the roads. And it's not necessarily because there's a huge amount of them, but like I said, because they cover large distances every evening, hoping to find an easy meal. Okay, Steve, you are wondering about hyena dens. We were discussing that a bit earlier for any of you who may have joined, and the fact that none of them are active on the area where we can traverse at the moment. And Steve, you're wondering why? Why would they move their den sites? And one of the main reasons is that animals, unlike us, don't have to buy property. Once they've got many houses within their property very often. Let me put it that way, rather. So in the case of hyena, they've got multiple spots where they can go and live within their territory, and you know, they don't have any housekeepers, so they just usually let Mother Nature take care of the housekeeping, and to do that they need to move out of the den, and all the fleas and kind of build up of parasites and their own poop, etc., in and around the den, especially if there's cubs, will be cleaned out by the decomposers, and naturally any parasites without any hosts will move off. So they're just kind of like chopping and changing, and it also means that it keeps any threats to their den, you know, guessing as to where the den site actually is. If animals knew permanently where a den was, it would make it easier for their enemies to attack them. But if they keep moving their den, it makes it a little bit more difficult for their enemies to keep track of the dens. So yeah, it's not uncommon for hyena to move den sites every 2 or 3 months, I would say on average, but sometimes they hang around for longer. There's no set rules. It is a pity they've moved off though, because there's such wonderful animals to view at their den sites, because the cubs are very cute, as well as the fact that it allows us a good opportunity to look at their parents. Guide Monkey, you are wondering why we don't go off-roading more in the Sabi Sands, seeing as though we're allowed to off-road here. Geez, I think we off-road whenever we actually need to. So to just drive off-road now in the hope of finding something would be ludicrous. It would take too long to get from A to B, and just to guess that there's something in the block, it wouldn't make any sense just to drive off in there. I mean, if you hear alarm calls and there's vultures, you know, maybe in trees, then possibly you can justify it, but just to drive off randomly wouldn't make sense. And I think we do off-road quite a lot, so give me an example of when you think we could off-road a bit more, Guide Monkey, and then I'll possibly understand a little bit better. There's also rules in terms of the off-roading. We are only supposed to off-road for the Magnificent 7, which is the Big 5, which all of you know, as well as cheetah and wild dogs. So high-profile sightings allow us to off-road. We, in theory, should not off-road for anything else, like these kudu, for example. And I think that is a good kind of rule to work off, because if everyone was off-roading as and when they pleased for every single animal, I think that definitely would start having an impact on the vegetation. So, very good. Now, these kudu need to be careful, because Tingana, the big male leopard that we are hoping on finding, could well come through this area a little bit later. And even though kudu are very large antelope, they are not too large for a leopard of Tingana's size and power. Once, early on in my career in the southern Sabi Sands, the dominant male leopard there caught a fully grown kudu bull, which is hard to believe. That would have been an incredible sight to see, because it would have taken that big male leopard a lot of wrestling and struggling to be able to completely subdue a fully grown kudu bull. Probably twice the weight at least of Tingana, or the male leopard. It wasn't Tingana, but the male leopard that was dominant down there. I forget his name. I forget who. Oh, he was the Campan male. He was one of the dominant males, but then another one came in. I think his name was Kashan. Alrighty, so we're at our eastern boundary, and now I need to try and guess as to where I should go from here, whether I should go south or not north. Tomorrow, you're wondering if there's any updates on some other male leopards, two brothers called Quarantine and Kunyuma, who are about 4 years of age now, I'm guessing. Quarantine was seen yesterday just in the Kruger National Park, interestingly, kind of north and east from here. He came quite close to this actual road we are on, but further north of where we were about 2 or 3 days ago, and then from here he's headed further east. I thought I may have heard something, but it's very windy, so difficult to pick up, and I think I was just imagining things. So yes, Quarantine is around. He seems to hang around from where we are here to the east. How far exactly, I'm not too sure. I'm not sure when last he was seen on Juma. Kunyuma, on the other hand, he's been called something else in the area where he's kind of set up shop now, and I think it's further south of where we are. So both of them are still around, but just not in our area of traverse, which is sad, because I'd love to see the two of them. I spent more time with those two leopards than probably any other leopard in my time with Safari Live. They were just freshly kicked out of their mother's care when I arrived here at the end of 2013, and we spent many an hour with them. It's quite easy to find young male leopards as soon as they've been kicked out, not of their mother's territory, but out of her care. So she'll tolerate them within her territory, but she just won't call them back to kills, and they'll try and follow her and steal her kills from her, and it's difficult for her to tell them otherwise once they've caught wind of her, because they're bigger than her. So we found that old Q and Kunyuma would spend a lot of time in and around a few waterholes. They're not too adventurous as soon as their mother leaves them, so it made our jobs very easy with finding them. Just going to have a quick scan of my binoculars. Nothing happening up there. And we're going to wait here. I'm going to try and get my radio working, get some better updates as to where this male leopard is. And while I try and do some investigation on that matter, we shall send you back to Noel.
Hi everyone. So that male leopard that Scott's having a look for, they had last night in Torchwood. So I'm really hoping that he is able to pick up on any tracks that might possibly coming over to Cheetah Cutline side this morning. So I'm trying to look at you all, but also the wind is blowing my hat off my head, so excuse me a bit. And we're trying to track. I'm trying to see if the sticks had decided to come left hand side from us, would be north from where they were seen. I'm also wondering where Shadow and her youngster are. I haven't seen Shadow. Actually, the last time I saw Shadow was with you, Ferg, when we came around the corner, and she was so lovely to be scent marking. I haven't seen her since then, and I'm super jealous of that amazing sighting you had of her interacting with Tundi. Ooh. 1988, you would like us to please remind everybody who is in the Big Five. So the Big Five traditionally, historically, comes from the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt. It's now the 5 most charismatic animals to see, or elusive animals to see on photographic safaris. There's still hunting safaris that happen, but for us here where we function, it's just photographic safaris. And that is lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhino. Now the original member of the Big Five was the black rhino, but we now count white and black rhino in the Big Five, so it can be either, but the original was black. Now, One of the reasons why these creatures were considered... It's kudu. Why these creatures were considered so dangerous to hunt is all of the ones that we listed, the lion, the leopard, the buffalo, and the black rhino. Yeah, lion, leopard, elephant, black rhino, when they're being hunted and they're shot, and let's say you shoot it and you wound it, they're more likely to come and attack you as opposed to run away. That's one theory behind it. And then the other is for something like a leopard, they're very elusive, very difficult, and so that's why they were considered from a hunter's point of view to be such a trophy. Then for us as photographic guides, it's one of those things. I mean, look at how long we waited yesterday evening for that little cub to pop out with Tani. And also we were chatting, Ferg and I went there earlier, and we could hear that she was around because of the alarm calls, but we couldn't see her. I mean, a leopard can be hiding right next to you, and if it's managed to do exactly what it needs to do with its camouflage, you're not necessarily going to be able to see it. So that's another reason why. Then we sometimes talk about the Magnificent Seven. So you take the big five and then you add on cheetah and wild dog, and that would be the Magnificent Seven. And wild dog and cheetah are also both elusive, but rather than being elusive, are slightly more rare, and they're not as quote-unquote dangerous as the big five. Cheetah are an apex predator, but they're at the bottom end of the apex predators, and wild dogs are just above cheetah in that hierarchy. Sorry, my Boxing Day voice is not going over very well. Debbie, you would like to know what are the advantages and disadvantages to bushwalk over driving. Debbie, there are no disadvantages to bushwalks. Bushwalks are the best thing in the whole world. So if you were going to come over here as a guest and come and stay in Africa at a lodge, I would do as much walking as possible. If I had to pick a disadvantage, it would just be if your whole purpose is to come here for photography, then you're not necessarily going to get the same type of photography from on foot as you would get from a vehicle for two reasons. One, you can't necessarily get as close to the wildlife on foot as you can in the vehicle. And two, your ability to stay longer when you have seen an animal on foot is compromised, because you need to get in, view it, and get out without it ever knowing that you're there. Now I say that, but there's a place in Zimbabwe called Mana Pools. It's on the top of my list of places to go, and a lot of the photographic safaris there do most of their photographic stuff on foot. It's super, Ferg and Nikki are going, me too. It's one of those amazing places where for some reason everything's just sort of come together, and you get these crazy elephant and wild dog sightings whilst on foot. I couldn't tell you the background as to why. I haven't been up there myself. I actually need to contact, I've got a friend that has a camp up there. I need to contact him and ask him what his thoughts are on that. So that would be slight small advantage over disadvantage. Debbie, it also depends on where you're doing safari. So we get a lot of questions about where should I go and are these good choices. It depends on, have you been on safari before? It depends on what do you want to see. It also depends on your budget, and it depends on what country you feel like going to. There are places I would send birding guests that I'm not going to send guests who really want to see lion. Do you know what I mean? So it's different than that. I actually have an email that I have to respond to since I've got back from leave, going over this sort of scenario and idea about where to go on safari. Now, one of the reasons why the Sabi Sands area or the greater Kruger area, the Lowveld area, is a place that I would send guests, whether you're first-time guests or repeat guests, has to do with our concentration of wildlife. I mean, especially the viewers that have been watching us for years and years and years, you know the type of wildlife that we get here, and we get really great sightings. The only downfall to the Lowveld area, in my personal opinion, is that in most of the places where you go on game drive here, you, not always, but you sometimes have a time limit, say 10 to 20 minutes on a sighting, because of the number of vehicles that need to to come and see the animals as well. I'm not saying that it's like a zoo and you're just going to see vehicles everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. It just, you have to be aware of everybody else. There are other places where I've worked in other African countries where you don't necessarily have that scenario. So you have to be very particular in which lodges you pick. And when I say which lodges, it's not just which lodges, but you want to go to a place that has really excellent guides, because that guide is the one that's going to be able to mitigate all those little sort of borders and barriers that we have to work with, and you're never even going to know that they existed. So again, you guys are always welcome to PM me if you have any thoughts on where you want to go. If you've already booked your holiday, I can't really do too much, but if you're thinking of booking your holiday, I can give you some suggestions. And you have to be really honest with yourself as well. You have to really say, I'm coming to see leopard. Don't do one of those things where you're like, oh, well, leopard would be nice, but secretly inside you're going, oh, I just want to see leopard. You have to say that, because that really dictates where you would go and where either myself or your travel agent or a friend of a friend or whomever would send you. Sorry, I'm feeling like I want to go into the Mulwati. So anyway, that's a super long-winded chat about safari. Philip, super interesting question. Philip, you're asking, does a bushwalk count as a vehicle in sightings? So Philip, when we're doing walks, we're trying not to engage with vehicles, because you cannot be on foot in a sighting with vehicles and be safe, if that makes sense. If you're watching lions and you're standing on this bank over here and there's 3 vehicles here, it's a bad scenario for you on foot. And then also those lions with the vehicles there are more aware because of the sounds and things, and also it takes away from the experience. Who wants to go on a bushwalk and come in contact with cars? It does happen every now and then, but the whole point of being on foot is to be away from everything. It's on your own 2 feet, you're lower down, you're smelling, your hearing is completely different. It changes bushwalks change your life. A proper bushwalk done well changes your life. So one of the things I really love to do when I do bushwalks with my guests is I don't actually talk a lot. We walk, and it's not a march, it's a slower walk, because I have to be aware of everything, and I will stop every now and then and give little bits of information, but I'm quiet a lot, because you want to really shut off and take in all of the sounds and the smells that are going on, and you can't do that when I'm talking in your ear the whole time. The other reason why I like to be quiet is, one, it helps me hear the wildlife, but I've had many occasions where we've been doing not a completely silent walk, but almost a silent walk, and managed to have the most amazing elephant sightings and rhino sightings. And I've also been on walks where we've been a little bit more chatty, obviously in quiet voices, but yeah, there's just something about shutting up and just being here and being present in the moment. It's I don't know if any of you have been following that movement that's resurged, the mindful movement, being mindful about what you're eating and how you're functioning, and what being mindful of in the moment of where you are. Bushwalks are like that. All right, our gremlins are now coming over to us, so let's head up to Scott and see how his tracking exercise is going.
Well, so far we have not come up with any tricks, but what we're hoping is that Tingana would have continued towards our property. I got a bit of a mixed message. He essentially was heading south and west yesterday evening. He hasn't been found this morning. So I've checked one portion of our eastern boundary, kind of to the north. No sign of him there, so now I'm going to check to the south, where there's actually more likelihood that he would have popped out somewhere here in terms of the trajectory that he was moving on when he was last seen at some point yesterday evening. So we'll just cruise along here. There's another vehicle that's checking the southern boundary. We're running on a road parallel to that, but still definitely in an area where he could poke his head out, or at least we could find some of his tracks. So I'm really looking forward to spending more time on foot with you guys. As Noel and you have been discussing, it really is a magical experience to be out on foot in Africa. And I've been loving being back in the vehicle, to be honest, but it's nice to mix and match and do a little bit of both. Jason, you wondering if there's areas that we can go to on Bushwalk where the vehicles simply cannot go? And yes, certainly. There's a number of places where, you know, if we were to find a leopard kill, for example, there may be no way of getting a vehicle in there, and therefore the only way of being able to get a view would be to head on with the Bushwalk backpack, depending on what the sighting is exactly. So it is possible. And no one's found your bird, so why don't you rush off and enjoy?
So this is a very special bird. Anthony, this is a present for you. I have a friend who still has not seen a gray-headed kingfisher. Here you are. There's your gray-headed kingfisher. He's going to say it doesn't count because he's not here. So the beak is red on top and red on the bottom, as opposed to having black on either side. There's more black on the wings, as you saw there. Oh, it just went and caught an insect. It just went right directly behind. I can just see him a little bit there, Ferg. See here? There. Perfect. So he caught an insect, and then can you see how his body's functioning? He's actually hitting that insect against the branch. I don't want to move the car because I don't want him to fly off. But there you can see those little jerking motions. And then again, the darkness on the wings and just a little bit of blue on the outside primary feathers there. And then you saw that very rufusy, orangey bottom to the breast there. He's also known as a rufous-bellied kingfisher in other parts of Africa. There he flies, and there he lands beautifully. Sorry for our aerial. Ferg has basically turned himself all the way around. And then there he is. You can see him nicely again. So we see these gray-headed kingfishers in this area often in the summertime. Well, I say often. I've seen them quite a bit, but again, I was just talking about my friend. He's been guiding for 25 years, and he still hasn't seen one. So everything is definitely relative. And as with most of our kingfishers, this is an insectivorous bird as opposed to a bird that eats a fish. And so he was just grabbing something flying out of the bank of the Mulwati there. So any of the birders that are out there, we're getting some really wonderful screenshots this morning with this particular gray-headed kingfisher. The last one that I saw with you all, the light was not as good. Now, something that I'm noticing around his head as he flies off there is that the plumage was a little bit scattered and not as consistent. So I'm having a feeling that it either got super wet or that it's possibly just coming into its adult plumage. And then Nix, I'm sorry, who's loving this? I missed the names. Dina and Guide Monkey, you're really enjoying that very bright cobalt blue feathers on the back there. There's a little bit of a iridescent twinge to it that gives it a somewhat violet color towards the ends there. It is a beautiful, beautiful bird. And it's nice with this overcast sky. It's actually bringing those colors out nicely. Now, that little insect that it just grabbed and ate recently, it's not going to be enough. It's going to need to keep going on and hunting and looking for insects and foraging, because that's how it's going to keep its energy levels up. So earlier in the morning it was a bit too cold, and now it's just the right temperature. Jamie, you're curious to know if the female is as brilliant. So, Jamie, yes, the female and the male of the gray-headed kingfisher look exactly the same. There's no sexual dimorphism, so she does. She looks just as pretty. Oh, fantastic bird. I love kingfishers. I also love that little head movement they do, going up and down and up and down. Now, with this sort of cooler but also warm weather, the insect populations are going to be moving around nicely. So part of the reason why the kingfishers sit the way that they do in the vegetation that they do is they're accessing areas where there's either going to be insects that are flying by or possibly insects that are climbing along the ground there, which makes it easier for them to dive down and grab them quickly. Be very similar to the movements of the pied kingfisher where they hover over the water looking for fish. It's the same sort of idea. Jason, interesting question. You're curious to know what is the evolutionary purpose of those vibrant colors. Now, Jason, if the male had different colors to the female, I would say it was because of breeding. But for me, with bird colors, with evolution, I honestly, it's similar to why does a water buck have a circle on its bum? I mean, some of them, like Birds of Paradise, they did that wonderful documentary, the David Attenborough, The Life of Birds, with all the different little mating displays. And then later on went back and used a UV filter, and they were seeing that there's actual patterns on the feathers that are in UV. So those mating displays have a lot to do with showing that UV light as opposed to anything else. But why, as to having those vibrant colors? Oh, there's a beautiful little blue waxbill. Anybody's guess. It could be just because nature wants every little bird to be different. If there's sexual dimorphism, it's to attract a female. But, lilac-breasted rollers, for instance, both males and females look the same. With this little blue waxbill, both males and females look the same. So I think it's just one of nature's gifts of, here we go, we're a bird, we're pretty, and let's see what sort of spectrums of the rainbow we can come up with, to be honest with you. If there's anyone else there that has a more scientific thought on it, I'm more than open to hearing that. Ooh, having a little bit of a bite there. So this bird is not an insect eater. It is a grass eater. So you see it's coming up to that little bit of grass and picking off the flowers, the inflorescence, and eating them. Yeah, Nix is just commenting how the beak has a sort of purple tinge to it, and it does. It's sort of a gray / purple / mauve color mixed in there. And sometimes you'll see with birds that have no sexual dimorphism, when they do go into sort of breeding, sometimes the color of their beaks and a little around the face has a slightly darker or different tinge color to it as well. Now, normally when there's one blue waxbill, there's more. I'm not seeing anymore at the moment, but Ferg managed to spot this beautiful guy off the back of the car here, and now he's telling me that he sees a few more. So that's good. That is how they usually function. Can you all hear the bird sounds in the background? I'm just going to be quiet for a sec. So we were talking about walks and doing silent walks. So that's kind of what it's like, is you are walking sometimes, and sometimes you just stand still and it's the bird calls and it's the wind pushing through the leaves. It's all the smells that come with it. This morning, this soil has a smell after it gets wet. The soil inside the Milwaukee, this riverbed soil. And I want to say it's like wet dog, but it's not bad like wet dog. It's prettier, it's hardier, but it's very pungent. And there's our kingfisher again, still looking for a meal. Jeanette, very good question. You're curious to know if there's albino birds. So, Jeanette, there's no albino birds, but there's leucistic birds. So, leucism is a lack of pigmentation, which gives the white coloration, but the eye color is the same. You also get melanistic birds, which is an overpigmentation, which would mean that the bird is all black as opposed to having any color. So, I've seen photos of leucistic fork-tailed drongos. I've personally seen melanistic pied babbler and melanistic gabar goshawk. Trying to think. Yes, there were some crazy photos that were coming out a couple of years ago with some melanistic and leucistic colorations. You'll also get, Jeanette, leucistic buffalo. So it's a white buffalo, but again, the eye color is the same. And then you'll get albino elephants. So usually with birds and with hooved animals, you get melanism or leucism. And then with something like a pachyderm or with us, those types of mammals, you get albinism. So if this kingfisher were to be leucistic, he would be white everywhere, where all those colors are. And if he was melanistic, he would be black everywhere. Although I've never heard of a melanistic or leucistic kingfisher. All right, Scott's got birds doing something else other than hunting insects, so let's head on over to him and see what's going on.
I'm not too sure what is going on here. There's some guinea fowl that I've heard alarm calling. You can see two of them there. They've just stopped alarm calling, and then there was another one up a tree. So I'm not sure what bothered them, whether it was a snake in the grass or possibly a leopard. I'm hoping it is a leopard. And I have noticed one or two kudu moving through the vegetation in the background, so maybe this leopard has got an eye on them, if there is in fact a leopard here. I'm possibly getting a little bit ahead of myself. Oh, it's one of my favorite things to do is to follow up on alarm calls, and we've driven off the road into the area where we eventually found the guinea fowl, but now there doesn't appear to be anything here. Maybe they're complaining about the miserable weather. Huh. Now the fact that we did see one up the tree makes me wonder, often when they see predators that are kind of ground dwelling like a leopard, they'll naturally fly up into a tree because they'll feel safer there. And of course, if it's a bird of prey, they'll usually stay down on the ground where they can hide and scurry off into the bushes a little bit easier. So hard to be certain what it is that got them going. Oh, big hole. Hello, BK. You would like to know how many different species have I ever seen in one particular sighting? And yeah, there's some kudu that are running up ahead of us. I think it's just the windy weather. They would ordinarily alarm call at something if they saw it. But let's just keep creeping along. Maybe we are lucky. Maybe there's a predator here. The most animals and species in one sighting, I don't remember counting a set scene. But the Maasai Mara is a very good place to see multiple species in one particular spot, because you can simply see so far from any given spot because it's so open there. And you also get a few other kind of desert-y, very dry areas where, with a little bit of water at any water points, you can also get a huge amount of mixed species. But yeah, in terms of the most species in one sighting, I can't come up with a set sighting. Nothing comes to mind. We've had some fascinating sightings though of lion, leopard, and hyena all in one sighting. Elephants coming past, but the most would have just generally been, general game. Ellies, topi, Grant's gazelle, Thompson's gazelle, white bearded gnu. It'll generally be the plains game all congregating together. That brings you your biggest multi-species sightings. I really thought those guinea fowl were going to lead us to some treasure, but I think it was a false alarm. Maybe they were looking at a bird of prey or something else. I guess guide monkey, we were discussing off-roading earlier, and this is a good example of where, as soon as I thought that there was a possibility that we could find a big cat off-road, we squirreled in, but no joy. So now we're going to squirrel our way back out and onto the road, and then come up with the plan C or D. I'm not sure how many times we've changed the plan already this morning, but it does change quite a lot. On safari, that's one of the realities. You kind of head out in the morning with the general idea of what you're going to do, and then very often the plans change quite quickly. Although I'm thinking as a kind of vague plan, I'm not sure how long it'll take me to get there, but I think I'm going to slowly start making my way back towards Tundy's Den Sites. If any of you are new viewers, Tundy is a female leopard who's got a tiny little cub. And I did pop in there a little bit earlier this morning. That didn't sound good. I did pop in there a little bit earlier this morning, but there was no sign of the mother. So hopefully she will be back from a successful hunting mission and be back at the den when we next poke our nose in there. Wunderbar, we are going to make our way back towards the road, or at least attempt to, and send you across to Noel, who's I think in a little bit of a better situation to receive you than I am at the moment.
Hello again. Wunderbar. I love that you said that, Scott. That's one of my favorite expressions. I've had some really amazing German guests over the years, and they always said wunderbar. I love it. That and Friedemaus, which is the name of a bat. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, we are going to go check Chitwa, I think. I think that's where we're headed. And we're going to see, we might get a little bit of funny signal dip just here when I go through this little dip, but just hang on, it'll pass over soon. And again, sorry for the back of my head. My hat's flying off. James, you're curious to know, are there any summer arrivals, so any migrant birds that come to us in our summertime that seem less scarce? James, I've barely seen any carmine bee eaters yet down here. I saw a whole bunch in Zambia when I was up there, because obviously they were breeding there. So it feels like they're taking a little bit to get down the side. I saw one or two in Shruvakani about a month or so ago, but other than that, I haven't really seen much. So yeah, I'm definitely missing them. And then we were chatting a couple of years ago with some friends of mine about the lack of, I like that better, lack of sort of swallows that are migrating down. And there's an interesting scenario that happens up in the northern sub-Saharan Africa where subsistence farmers put up big nets to catch birds because they use them as food, and that's actually affecting some of the migratory bird population numbers, just as a side thought. So not seeing as many of them as we used to see. And then obviously, James, we're still looking for that silly Klaus's cuckoo. I have heard and seen it a couple times, but we haven't gotten it on camera. So I'm hoping maybe today's the day. Maybe today is the day. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so now as I'm driving around, I am keeping an eye on all of you and talking to you as well, but I also need to look around quite a bit. It is really good weather for movement of predators of any kind, and then with the wind picking up, all of our prey species are going to be hiding a little bit more, so I need to check inside the bushes and check under trees and things like that. I haven't really, other than our big male elephant that we couldn't show you but that was around earlier, haven't picked up anything on fresh on ellies. So as I say that, there's some ellies that have moved around when it was wet back there, heading sort of in this direction. Matthew, you want to know how we tell how old tracks are? So Matthew, if you ever paint, wet paint is wet paint and it glistens and you can tell that it's wet, and then as it dries that wetness fades and it starts to sort of peter off and gets a bit more dry looking. It's the same with tracks. Fresh tracks look fresh, and then obviously wind and sun and time starts taking away all the detailed edges, and that's how you tell the difference. We're just checking in. I wonder if when we get to Chitwa Dam, if there might be elephants around in there from the signs that I'm seeing. But we will have to wait and see. We're on our southern boundary here, so it's a little bit corrugated, a little bit bumpy. Guide Monkey, you're curious to know, are there any species that thrive during drier spells? So Guide Monkey, there's species that thrive in drier climates, most definitely. Everything has to fit its niche and everything is habitat dependent. Here in sort of drier weather, I think everything just sort of makes it through, but they definitely prefer the more sort of lush, slightly slightly wet weather, but in general, South Africa is an arid area. We have parts that get more rain than others. But when it's too dry, it's not really good for much. That's for sure. Ugh. So windy. Well, there's elephant dung in the road there. Lady Starfire, you're curious to know when is the rainy seasons in Juma. Lady Starfire, we only have one rainy season, and that's our summer, and that's now. So it's rainy season now. So we should have rains come end of October all the way through to February, roughly. It's changed a little bit over the years, obviously with climate change and things like that, but that's our rainy seasons, our summertime. Then that's most of South Africa, excepting the western side, Cape Town area. They get winter rains. So that has to do with South Africa has a large escarpment that goes over most of the interior. Everything sort of on the escarpment and east has summer rains, and it's a dry winter. And then everything on the western side is a wet winter and a dry summer. Thanks, Hank. I'm glad you're appreciating my very long monologues this morning. Thanks, Ferg. I always have trouble when we don't see things because I don't know how much you guys want to hear me waffle on about whatever we happen to be waffling on about. But I'm glad to hear that it's working for you, Hank. I'm very glad about that. All right, well, we're coming up to Chitwa Dam in front of Chitwa Lodge. And I'm not seeing elephants at the moment, but when we get up to the dam wall, I'm going to stop so that I don't have to drive and try and hold my hat and look for all of our species. And then we'll just have a wee look around and see what's potting. Maybe we get lucky and Hasana wants to pop up. I haven't seen Hasana in forever. I've decided that he's the new cheeky one. So Tingana and I have an understanding now. I sat with him for quite a while when we were doing rehearsals for our TV broadcast with Nat Geo Wild that happened on the 15th for us in South Africa, but the 14th for you in the States. And so we've come to an understanding, Tingana and I. Now Hasana is my next one. And I have not seen Tamba at all. I would really like to see Tamba. So he's on my list. Oh, we have hippos! Everyone loves a hippo. Every time we've got a tree that we just passed by here, and it's the tree that James Hendry climbed up and talked about eating the leopard orchid, and he wants to see Scarlett Johansson, and now every time I pass by that tree, that's all I can think about. All right. Hello, hippo. Sitting here nicely on the edge of the dam with your little head popped out. And of course, as we zoom in, he's probably going to dive under, as they like to do that. They're also cheeky like those bull elephants. There we go. Now hippos, there's two of them. Hippos are the mammal that loses the most moisture through their skin than any other mammal, which is one of the reasons why they have to be in the water so much, is so that they can maintain their moisture content. These ones have gone under. We've got a couple more over by the island. And then I saw a few more sort of tootling around in the back. There we go. They look like little rocks in the water, but there they are. The light is difficult for viewing hippos in the dam this morning because the color of the water and the color of the sky are basically the same, and so it mutes everything and gives it a very flat coloration. What is that bird that is flying over them? Ferg, I think that's a tern. It might be a whiskered tern. You've got it, of course. You're brilliant. So terns are birds that you'll see along the edges of the water, sort of freshwater as well as seawater and in estuaries. Waders and shorebirds are by no means my strong point. Tristan is much better than I am at it. But there he's landed. It looks like it's a bit far off, but it looks like he's got a black head. And there was black under the belly there. And it's still 2017, so I can still go off. You're reading my mind. Nikki, I do have a book. I'm just looking now as I'm chatting away. I've still got birds that I want to tick off for this year, and it is definitely a whiskered tern. I called that one. Fantastic. Okay, so you see here with the whiskered tern that Ferg will get to just now. We don't want to give you guys epilepsy with our camera movement here. Black back head, and then dark underneath here, with the adult breeding colors, and this would be a breeding time for this whiskered tern this summertime here. The only things we couldn't see from the distance would have been the red beak and the red legs, but the way that it was flying and the wing pattern, most definitely. If it was a white-winged tern, which we get here in summertime, we would not have seen sort of the dark belly there in the non-breeding, but then have a look at the breeding. Do you see how dark it is everywhere? And that one distinctively had a dark head with a bit of a breakup and then dark again. Fantastic! That's my first whiskered tern for the season. I'm going to add that one down. That makes me super happy. I need to add up my bird list for this year. I think I'm going to have to start doing that shortly because we only have a few days left in the year. I cannot believe it's almost 2018. I'm astounded. Okay. I'm not hearing any elephants. I'm not hearing any lions. Say one more time, Ferg. Where? If we go up. Ferg says he... Huh? Ferg said he can see a playful hippo. We have to go up onto the wall, but he says obviously, when we get up there, he might stop. Let's see if he does it again. Samuel, good question. You're curious to know, are hippos endangered? So, Samuel, I don't think that they're on any of the red data lists as far as I know, but of course we're going to have people out there who will be able to quickly Google that and double check to see if I am right or not. But I also don't think that we are fully aware or fully care as much about the numbers because of scenarios that are happening with things like elephant and rhino. When you get one or two species that are really having a hard time, people tend to focus a lot on just those one or two species, and other species tend to sort of fall through the cracks. So we are losing water courses, and there's pollution issues across the continent, just like everywhere in the world, and with seasonal changes and dams being built. So I would assume that yes, there is a possibility that the hippo numbers are much lower than they should be, and they are an important part of the ecosystem, especially in places like the delta, the Okavango Delta in Botswana. I mean, these hippos are hysterical. They really are important for the ebb and flow of the nutrients under the water and mixing things up, and when they're walking around, and how the islands form and things like that. But I couldn't give you the actual specific what the IUCN thinks about hippos on that one. I can do my homework and get back to you tonight. I love when you guys give me homework. It forces me to become more smart. Look at these hippos. They're having a ball. Jason, you're curious to know if hippos are safe from predators whilst in the water. Yes and no. Large crocodiles can definitely get towards small and medium-sized hippo. Look at them. So what they're doing under the water here is they're running along the bottom and jumping along the bottom. They're basically chasing each other. So if this was elephants, we would see them chasing each other around and wrestling. But these ones are under the water, so that whole scenario is happening under there. That one just dunked the other one. And sometimes baby hippos, Jason, are can be killed by other hippos, female and male. I've seen it happen within a pod, especially when the water starts decreasing in certain areas. So yeah, it can happen, but most of the predation would occur outside of the water. I know Ralph's been watching those lions up in the Maasai Mara that have been eating that hippo carcass, so I would assume those lions got that hippo when it was meandering about and grazing outside the water. I'm enjoying these two little hippos and their shenanigans. And they popped up quite close to us here, and I think they realized that we were watching them. And now it looks like they might move over to the rest of the pod or the raft. Sazman, fantastic. 207 with that whiskered tern on your bird list. I love it. I love when you guys get new ones ticked off there and added in. Morning Glory, you're at 252 with the whiskered tern. Well done. I like it. Great stuff. Ooh, Lucy, you're the winner for the morning. Winner, chicken dinner. You're at 315 with that whiskered tern. Well done. So I'm assuming that's not for for everyone that we just got there. That's not for the year. Are those your ultimate bird lists for Juma, or is it just for this year? I'm curious to know from anyone there. We'll wait for you guys to answer. There's more birds down here where we see those little croc hatchlings, so I think let's head down that way. All right, let's head over to Scott and see if he can find you some interesting birds to add onto your list. And don't forget to let me know if those numbers are for always or just for this year, and we'll see you shortly.
Well, I've never heard of a whiskered tern until this morning. So, well done, Noelle. I'm very happy that she's got a lot of you an extra bird for your bird lists. Now, I know you're discussing also the migratory birds. James Richards asked if there were any kind of usual migrants that haven't arrived on time. I think the white stork is possibly another migratory bird that should have arrived by now, but I haven't seen one of yet. It's not to say there haven't been any here, it's just I haven't seen any. I did see one pair of carmine bee-eaters on the Buffelshoek cut line, probably within the first 2 weeks of my arrival in the beginning of December, and haven't seen any since, although when Nikki and I drove out of the reserve yesterday to go and drop off Amanda, our taste engineer. She cooks all of our tasty meals for us, and I saw a few just outside the reserve. They quite often like to perch themselves on power lines, telephone lines, any lines that we've put up, because it's a good vantage point for them to just kind of sit at a height where a lot of insects are ordinarily flying, and then they can just swoop off, catch them, and fly back and land in the tree. So they often perch themselves higher up in trees, like kind of dead knobthorn trees or anything like that. That's where they usually like to perch themselves. And I'm wondering if it's not because we've had a major lack of rain here that a lot of the insects that would ordinarily be in this area aren't. They're not erupting and emerging as they ordinarily would, which leads me to think that the migratory birds are making hay or making the most of other areas. I can't think of any other migratory birds though that we're missing. I'm sure there's a couple. Haven't seen many lesser spotted eagles. They usually come in onto the scene for our summer months. Who else is there? Probably a whole bunch that I just can't think of. The one I'd really like to arrive the most is the carmine bee-eater, because they're just such spectacular birds. Very, very beautiful. Well, I guess Wakesha pilots jumped to the fact that I was chatting about Amanda, our chef, a little bit earlier, and you'd like to know, how was our dinner last night? It was absolutely wonderful. I think we could classify it as a 7-star meal. And we had Conrad, one of our technical wizards, on braai duty. He was the braai master, which is it's a major responsibility, having the tongs in your hand and being in charge of flipping the meat at the perfect time as it roasts over the coals. And Conrad did an incredible job. Not easy to braai for a lot of people, especially on a hot summer's night in the Lowveld. So, yeah, we had a wonderful dinner. We actually cooked everything over the fire because the oven was playing up, or we basically just didn't know how to get it to work. Amanda does, we don't. It's a bit of a temperamental gas oven, I guess. so we didn't want to blow the kitchen up. So we cooked everything over the coals, even the vegetable dishes. We just put in tin foil and we cooked everything in and around the fire, except for the sweet potato mash. That was done indoors. Very nice mash. Jared and Ashley took care of the sweet potato mash, and we had a righteous feast. But to be honest, we did celebrate our Christmas a day or two early. We had a Mexican-themed dinner on our Christmas night. We didn't celebrate Christmas yesterday. Was it the day before Christmas that we celebrated, or 2 days before? Either way, we've made the most of it, and we've had pre-Christmas, during Christmas, possibly some post-Christmas celebrations today. Who knows? Alrighty. You're wondering if there have been any snake sightings today, and no, there haven't been today. I don't think there have been any the entire month. I'm lying. I got to see one brief, or show you guys at least one brief sighting of what I thought was a stiletto snake or a burrowing asp on a bushwalk. And no joy with the snakes. I mean, in all the time I've spent in the Sabi Sands, I've seen very, very few snakes. And if I was to put it in kind of a ratio per month, I would say we see one, well, I guess you'd see maybe one snake every 2 months or 3 months. On average, 4 or 5 sightings a year, not more than that. It obviously depends on luck, and you could see all 3 sightings within a week of one another, but we've sadly very, very seldomly see snakes here. One of the best opportunities would be for us to go and catch snakes that are found in a camp and need to be relocated to a more appropriate place out in the bush, and then we could show you the snakes once we've relocated them. But I guess we've got quite a lot on our plate, so as to start being an armed, well, not an armed response, but a snake response unit to go and try and catch snakes would be adding a little bit too much to our plate, racing around the Sabi Sands. But I'm trying to think of how we can improve our snake sightings. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna head up to the den site of a leopard now in the hope that she's returned, and while we do that, we will send you off to a bird that is hunting.
We have a hunting great egret. It just caught a little fish now. So great egret might be another one for your bird list. And I'm glad to hear that those numbers you were giving were over the years. That's absolutely fantastic. I would be interested to know if there's anyone that has a bird list just for this year for South Africa and what those numbers would be. This great egret is another one from my list for this year. I haven't seen one this year yet. And notice how remember their eyes are on the side of the head. So notice how he's positioning his head and his neck so that he can see down and into the water a little bit there. And then he spears the fish with his beak. And sometimes he uses his feet to push up the fish, and sometimes he's just angling himself so that he can stab them and eat them. Ooh, nope, he missed. Then just behind him, there's some Egyptian geese there. This guy is very active in hunting. Obviously, look, it's a cooler day, but it's still summer, so it's not cold. It's cold for me and Ferg, but it's not freezing cold. So that there's a lot of, oh, looks like there, he got something. Now he's swallowing it. It was a tiny little fish. This is fantastic. So there's a lot of insect and fish activity, and of course the bird activity along with it. And here in the shallows, there must be a lot of smaller fish, maybe little baby tilapia, also known as bream. I want him to catch a bigger one just so you all can see the fish itself. He's got a beautiful snowy white plumage to him. And with the coloration of the water in the sky today, it's popping out nicely. Now, one of the reasons why I say this is a great egret has to do with the fact that his legs are black on the top part there and his beak is bright yellow. Oh, he caught something. Did you see that there? Oh, very nice. Michael, you would like to know if I've seen any violet-backed starlings yet this season. Yes, indeed, I have. I think Tristan showed one on air several weeks ago, but I'll see if we can find some more to show you possibly today. We'll have to wait and see. I've seen a lot more females than I have males this year. The males are beautiful. They used to be called a plum-colored starling. They have a beautiful, vibrant violet plumage. The females are very boring brown, of course. This guy is really going for it. Hist, you're asking what are the differences between an egret and a crane? It's a super interesting question. Off the top of my head, I'm going to assume it has to do with body structure. I mean, herons and egrets are very, very similar. Our national bird is the blue crane. Let me see if I can just find it for you quickly so that we can see while we're talking. And again, you've given me some homework. I also think it has to do with what they eat. So I'm pretty sure that the cranes eat quite a lot of insect matter as opposed to fishing around in the water like this. So we're just going to leave our fishing bird just for a second and we're going to come over to the book. All right, so we get gray crown cranes in parts of South Africa, but you would see them up in the Mara quite a lot with Taylor and with Ralph. And then here's the blue crane, here's our national bird. Now, usually when you see these two birds, you're seeing them, there'll be water around, but they're sort of out in the grasslands and picking up insects. Now, as opposed to this great egret that we're looking at here, we also get the yellow-billed egret and we get little egrets here, these three this side. They're going to wade in the shallows of the water and fish their food out and have aquatic creatures for most of their diet, as opposed to, look at the beak structure with our cranes here, it's much shorter, even though they've got the long legs and a similar body type. That's going to be more of an insect or snakes and more terrestrial food sources. So now that we've talked through it, I'm guessing those are the differences, to be honest with you. I would think that possibly their nesting behavior and where they put their nest is slightly different, but I would have to double check for you on those ones there. Now we also have somewhere here, is he gone? We had a cattle egret. One of these ones down here. We had a beautiful little cattle egret, but he's meandered off, unfortunately. And then we also have some really beautiful white-faced whistling ducks that are just busy at the edge here that are stirring up the vegetation and picking their way through that vegetation. And also I'm pretty sure that they eat a few snails every now and then, freshwater snails. And they're called white-faced whistling ducks because they have a white face and they whistle, funnily enough. And of course they're not whistling for us now because that would be too easy. Yeah. Daniel, you're curious to know what's the difference. Yes, you guys are really working my bird knowledge today. You want to know what the difference is between a tern and a gull. So I'm just going to get, while you guys are looking at the ducks, let me just get my book organized. So, Daniel, terns are much smaller than gulls. Also, their wing pattern is a little bit different. Let me just find our tern and then I'll find you a gull so you can have a look. And I would also assume that their nesting patterns are different but the same. So here is our whiskered tern that we saw this morning is just here. Notice it's got quite short little legs, short little beak, small head, and then longer feathers along it. Then a gull that we would see here, possibly at a place like Chitwa Dam, would be a gray-headed gull. So notice how it's got a much thicker neck, it's got a longer neck, a bigger head, a longer beak, and not as long with the feathers there, and then longer legs. So again, it's just fitting a similar niche, but also just acting a bit different so that they can both be in the same area without competing with each other too much. But again, other than that, other than the sort of physiological and morphological parts of it, I couldn't really honestly tell you off the top of my head the difference. I can go and have a look-see and see what we can find for sure. I'm also trying to see, is that a dickup, or do we have possibly our heron is back at the edge there? It's a little dickup. There's a water dickup or a thickney that's just at the edge of the water there. Busy scouting around for food. We had a green-backed heron that was around that likes to hunt along the edges here, but he's also moved off a little bit. And then every now and then we're getting a view of this tiny little baby hippo. Tess, you're curious to know, what is a hippo's mating ritual? So the male will come up behind a female after she's gone sort of wee or defecated in the water, and he'll test her pheromones off of that to see if she's ready to mate, and then he'll sort of follow her around and try and put his head on her rump, and then if she is not sort of running away from him, and this is all happening in the water, if she's not moving away from him, he'll rest his head there, and then he'll mount her, and they'll mate like that, and then he'll move off and be in his territory, and she'll give birth several months later in the water, and then she'll nurse in the water as well. So this female that we're looking at now is the one that's usually on this side of the dam, and she's got that little baby with her. I know during the TV show the little one was climbing up onto the mum quite a bit, but today is very windy and cold, so that we've just seen on her right hand side, so the back side to our screen, he's popping up every now and then there. Oh, now he's popped up on that side instead. Very well. There we go. So he's under there. He's probably looking for a bit of nursing and just keeping himself warm. So let's head back to Scotty D and see if he's had any luck at that den site with Tundi, and if we can maybe see that little cub today.
Sadly, no joy. So Tundi must be out doing two things, either trying to get herself another meal, busy hunting, or maybe she's made one and she's made a kill and she's busy snacking on it. And I mean, to give you an idea of what may happen, is like one morning the tracking team found Tundi as she made a kill, and it was early in the morning at around 7 o'clock, and she stayed with that kill until quite late that same evening. So she could be gone from the den site for the whole entire day. And of course it's still worth our while to poke our nose in every now and then to see if she hasn't returned. But the reality is she could spend 12 hours away from that den trying to get her next meal. So I'm thinking what to do is just kind of go for a drive around the area where we've been noticing Shadow, Tundi's sister, has been spending a lot of time. So hopefully we'll be able to find her. I'm desperate for some spots this morning. And also we'll be quite happy to be able to find something and stop and look at it, because it's quite a cold, windy morning. I didn't bring enough layers. Lady Starfire, you would like to know which animals in general have got mating seasons or breeding seasons. A lot of the birds will only nest in the summer months. So the birds are a species that will be quite specific to kind of making the most of the summer bounty, as well as a lot of the herbivores, especially the herbivores with a gestation period of 6 months or less, which is most of your general game. Then you start getting animals like hippos, rhinos, elephants. We've got long gestation periods, and even though they are herbivores, it makes it difficult for them to plan exactly when to mate, and therefore obviously when they will give birth. So yeah, then a lot of the predators don't, although wild dog do. Interestingly, all other predators are a lot less bound to kind of mating seasons, but wild dogs tend to den in South Africa in and around March, which is quite interesting. But as you know, the predators have always got access to food. Of course, there is a bounty of youngsters which are easy to cash in on during the summer months, but they don't plan their birthing around that, and therefore their mating. I hope that helps, Lady Starfire. I guess a lot of the insects, through default, because they're most active in summer, will also be mating in the summer months. So I think I've covered a lot of the main species we get out here, and families rather, of animals. If there's any others that you can think of that you're wanting to know about, do shout, and we'll get on top of that. Philippe, you're wondering if the senses of the prey species will become heightened before or during stormy weather. And I guess it's not that their senses will become heightened, they'll just be on higher alert. It's not like their senses will become any better. They'll just focus more because they'll be naturally more scared, because any little sound they hear or any little bush they see waving in the wind, they may presume to be a predator. So I think, yes, I think they're definitely going to be a lot more skittish and nervous in stormy weather, and their senses will definitely, maybe, I guess it's just, yeah, maybe their senses will become heightened / they will just be on higher alert. I just don't know if they have the ability to increase their level of being able to smell simply because, or hear simply because the weather's bad, but they, like I say, are just going to be more tuned into their senses. Ah, very good. We have found a duiker who seems to be chewing on something. Don't know what it is you're chewing on. You have got a mouthful there. What have you found? Is that a marula? Oof! Well, you swallowed. Are you chewing the cud? What you up to, buddy? Have you got the hiccups? No, I'm not sure, because it definitely swallowed something and then continued to chew. That's kind of not really underneath the marula tree either, so I wonder what it was chewing on. I've never seen a duiker with a mouthful that big before. Made me get a little bit hungry myself, to be honest. I wonder what's for breakfast today. So some of you guys might remember this little story I'm about to tell you. It was back in the days of quarantine and Juma, and when I was still very new to safari life, and basically we had been following tracks of a young male leopard. We weren't sure whether it was quarantine or Juma. And there's another road that runs, there's a small riverbed here, and there's another road that kind of runs down and connects up ahead, and we saw the tracks coming this way in this little riverbed. So I drove around and then came down this hill, and I parked the vehicle probably right here. And then I jumped out to check if any of the tracks had come out through this drainage line. So as I jumped out the car, quarantine popped out from right here, literally. I mean, I think the bushes were a bit bigger, and then he ran up and kind of just waited on the side there. Thankfully, I was very close to the vehicle. Ooh, excuse me, the vehicle. Now I've got the hiccups after that duiker. That duiker gave me some contagious hiccups. But that was a wonderful morning. Happy memories. Lots of happy memories driving around this place. Very good. Well, it sounds like Noelle is still at the Chitwa waterhole and she's found you guys a very cool bird.
I am Scott. I'm loving your story, by the way, of getting out of the car and almost on top of quarantine. We've got a little green-backed heron that's here that is busy in the backside of the dam. This is sometimes where we see Hasana. I actually came back here because we see painted snipe back here, and I'm not sure if any of you have painted snipe on your life list or on your year list. I saw him a couple of weeks ago, so I got to tick him off, which was good. This guy is busy hunting. So we're going to watch him for a little bit, and I'm just keeping an eye on, there's tall grass sort of at the edge of this little marshy area, and I'm just keeping an eye there to see if this painted snipe will come out and show itself, because that's a big one. It's also one of the birds that's a lifer type bird. I've had guests before that have come to join me on other properties that I've worked, looking for painted snipe in particular. Now, we watch leopards stalk quite a bit, and we watch lions and cheetahs stalk, but now you're watching a greenback heron stalking his prey, and it's a very similar movement. Look how he hunches himself down, and look how slowly and surely he puts his feet, and he doesn't want to move too much because obviously he doesn't want to scare away his prey, just like a lion or a leopard. And then he's going to stab it with his beak. A lion or a leopard, of course, will grab with the claws. Very patiently waiting and watching. There possibly could be little fish in there. There could be frogs that are in here. Look how precisely. And he barely makes a ripple as he puts his feet down. Adjusting his weight. And again, making sure there's no disturbances. Watch there, he's going to move his foot very slowly. Look how he repositions that weight. Just moving, inching forward. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Notice the long toes and the little claws that were at the back there that help him go on top of the mud and then grip. Deanna, you're saying you love his foot placement. Yeah, it's very precise, very neat, very well organized. It is pretty amazing. So he's definitely spied something. I'm feeling like whatever he's seen is possibly something like a frog. Frogs are very astute. They're very aware of their surroundings. They're a difficult prey to catch, similar to a fish. But fish also, not that frogs don't move quickly, but fish move constantly, and frogs sometimes will just sort of rest at the edge of the little marsh areas. There he goes, very slowly moving his foot again. You can see he's even changed the way he's moving his feet now, which means he's closer to his prey. This is exactly how a leopard stalks. Think about all those times we've seen leopards hunching down and just very, very, very slowly moving one leg and then moving another leg and bunching all their muscles up. This is the same sort of thing. Now in the background we can hear "Piet my fro, Piet my fro, Piet my fro." That's a red-chested cuckoo calling in the back. one of our summer migrants. Now it's amazing. He can see inside this murky water exactly what he's looking for. I can't really see at all what he's after. So again, we're just guessing, we're just postulating here, but you can see the intent is very clear on what he would like to do. And then he's going to try and get as close as possible without chasing that prey away, and then stab it quickly with his beak, and then hit it against something to help kill it, and then swallow it. Grateful Dad, you're saying this reminds you of the chameleon that Ferg and I saw yesterday. Yeah, I mean, that chameleon's also very slow and precise with his footing. He wobbles a little bit more. This heron is has a definite end goal. That chameleon was just trying to get across the road without being eaten. All right, while we wait, this is a difficult one. See, he could grab stab the prey now, or it could take him 5 minutes. So I'm thinking, let's give it another sort of 10 to 15 seconds, and then let's head on over to Scott and see what he is up to. Because this guy's not really moving forward anymore, so whatever he's seen seems to be just in front of him. But I've also seen them wait like this for quite a while. Sorry, Nix, go again. Okay, I think let's go to Scott. Let's go to Scott and see what Scott's up to. We'll be back.
Sorry guys, it sounds like you did have a bit of a tricky situation there. And we've also got an interesting situation here. The elephant herd that we are looking at now weren't incredibly relaxed with us, although there's one right behind us here, Senz. It's only a few meters behind Senzo. That does seem quite relaxed with our presence. But definitely when we arrived on the scene here at Treehouse Waterhole, they just finished drinking. There was one or two of them that kind of just gave us a little bit of a funny look, so we're going to have to tread lightly around them. Not sure why they'll be in a bad mood this morning. Not that they're in a bad mood, they're just a little bit skeptical of us, I guess. Let's try and get ahead of them. It does also look like there's possibly another herd or another portion of this herd further into the block ahead of them. So let's see if we can't try and work out exactly what's going on here. But like I say, if any of the cows do give us any more signs that we should head on, then that is exactly what we will do. There's mainly one female that just had kind of a bit of a strange demeanor about her that got me a little bit concerned. I want to do a fairly big loop ahead of them and then let them slowly come onto us. So as to just make sure that we don't actually intrude on them and let rather them come and intrude on us. Bobby, you'd like to know how long does it take for elephant dung to be kind of worked back into the ecosystem? It all depends on the time of the year that the elephant makes the poop. And the reason why is that in winter there's not many insects active to start decomposing and breaking down the dung. So you tend to find those balls of dung stay for a lot longer, but they will eventually be consumed by termites. So it can take anything from, let's say, a year to the same day it gets pooped out. If there's dung beetles around, which there haven't been many of the last few weeks, those guys come in and spread everything up. Also, a lot of birds will assist in opening up fresh piles of ellie dung. That's kind of throughout the year, but it all depends on the individual pile of poop, really. But I'd say no longer than a year. as a guess, a guesstimate. Now we're nearly in a good spot. Just sit and wait. I think maybe we go a little bit further forward. Hello, Hank. You are wondering what is the difference between savanna and bushveld. And I guess savanna is ordinarily more open, but you get, you know, a whole bunch of different variations of very similar things. But I think, yeah, as a general... Ooh, I just ended up on a stump there. There's one young ellie that may give us a little bit of an interesting time here. It was holding its head up quite proudly here. Let's see if it doesn't come trundling up to us and show us how big and strong it is. It's one of my favorite things to witness out here. See, I think savanna's generally more open, and then bushveld would be more kind of like this, what we're experiencing now. But you get... Oh, here it comes. Keep coming. Brrr. That was me pretending to make a trumpet noise. I think we've got ourselves in a really good spot here. I'm hoping that if we're just a little bit patient, the rest of this herd will slowly start working their way all around the vehicle. Okay, well, I've been having trouble with my game drive radio, so Noel's been checking in for me on the Juma frequency, and there's no updates today other than elephants across here. She's operating on a different radio frequency on Chitwa, so happy to know that we're not skipping a beat here. Hello, Beardosaurus Rex. You'd like to know if I've ever had to run from an animal. And yes, on a number of occasions I've had to scramble up trees. But as a general rule, you should not run from most of the animals that may decide to give you a hard time out here. The only exceptions are kind of black rhino to a degree. Definitely buffalo. Don't stand your ground for a buffalo, it'll just plow you over. So try and get out of its way. And once or twice with elephants when trying to chase them out of camps where they've broken into the elephant fencing. A big reason why it's important not to run, especially when you're in groups and you're being guided by a guide on a walk, is that if everyone runs and scatters, then the guide is going to battle to take care of everyone. Oh, tiny little baby, cute, carrying a little branch along the way. Now you can hear a noise. It sounds like my alarm clock going off. It's not. It's a crested barbet. Trying to see it for you. It's in one of the trees next to us, but I just can't see it yet. So I'll keep trying to find it. Where on earth is it hiding? This is a mystery to me. Obviously it could just be behind one individual branch. It's not a very big bird. It's making a big noise, but it's not a big bird itself. Yeah, I mean, I've had to run once or twice, but generally you stand your ground. And like I was saying, as a general rule, when you are being taken by a guide on a walk, and like I said, if everyone scatters and runs for themselves, then it's going to make it very difficult for the guide to take notes of where everyone is, and also position quickly. I really hear this bird calling now that the elephants have all disappeared behind the bushes. Jeez, it's really going for it. It's somewhere up in this marula tree to our left here. Can you see it? Okay, Sensor has spotted it, so hopefully he'll be able to get you a view of it. Oh, well done, Sens. It's a little bit obstructed, but you can see it there. They are the punk rock stars of the African wilderness. Black mascara around his eyes, or her eyes, the males and
Floating vegetation on top of the water here. He caught the last one, but now he's been busy stalking this one, and you can just see the little insect just in front of him on the right-hand side on top of that little floating vegetation, and he is just waiting patiently to get close enough to be able to spear it. He managed to get the last one, so he's had a tiny little bit of a meal. We also had a Woodland Kingfisher come and land just above our heads with a dung beetle that it had caught. And then its mate called and it flew off. But look at him go, very slowly. I'm hoping you all can see that little black speck that's on top of that floating vegetation there, because that's what he's after. That's the insect. And he should be close enough by now. He's keeping an eye on it with his left eye. And Kyle, you're curious to know what a greenbacked heron success rate would be. Kyle, I have no idea, hey? No idea the percentages of that. So variable, especially if you're hunting things like insects. I would assume that it's quite high. It is a bird. Most bird success rates, especially when they're insect eaters, are higher, and that also just has to do with the fact that their prey species is abundant. And also it's going to do supplement with things like fish and frogs like we talked about. So yeah, I would assume it's quite high, but I couldn't give you an actual number there. It's an interesting thought. I think he tried for something to the side there. Oh, I was so wrong. It wasn't a little insect there on the pad. There was another insect to the side, and I think he tried and then he missed it. Oh, fantastic. All right, I'm thinking that Scott still has his Ellie, so let's head back. I haven't seen our painted snipe, so we'll probably carry on. You must enjoy those Ellies with Scott, and hopefully by the time I see you again, we've got something else interesting to show you.
Well, I'm sure Noel will have something else for you by the time you head back there. We have managed to loop ahead of this herd of elephants. I'm guessing it's possibly two separate herds that we've stumbled across, because I can see some members of one herd heading towards the waterhole for a drink. You can just see one in the background there disappearing behind the dam wall. So we'll maybe try and loop around to see them, but there's lots of youngsters here. So I'm tempted to stay with them. They are so cute, these little Ellies, and there seems to be a little bit of a kind of playful mood this morning. Playful / nervous. I'm not sure if it's this windy, cloudy weather that's getting them a little bit excited. Wonderful stuff. Looks like two are trying to play with one another there. Sadly, they are obscured by one of their bigger cousins. Hello, Brian. Good to have you on board. And you are wondering if it's more dangerous to be around a herd of elephants when there's lots of small babies like here. I think it does possibly increase the likelihood of mothers being extra protective if there are lots of newborns around. But to be honest, it's more about the area that you're in. I found some areas in Africa, especially where elephants are persecuted by humans, or possibly where they are able to attack their crops and have negative kind of interactions with humans. Their elephants can be very unpredictable, and quite unwelcoming of us. Whereas here in the Sabi Sands, as a general rule, most herds are quite relaxed with us. And I think even if these herds have been exposed to kind of negative behavior elsewhere, once they get into this area, there's 40 or 50 years of history here of elephants coming in and being viewed by people and not being bothered, as a general rule, by the people. So I think we're very fortunate here, and the elephant viewing we get here is very, very good. And usually the fact that the youngsters are around doesn't really impact my assessment of the herd and the aggression of the females. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a direct correlation between danger and lots of youngsters. Looks like that lady's smelling something, or possibly even listening to some infrasonic vibrations from other elephants in the area. When elephants stop everything, and have all their legs planted on the ground, you can almost see that they're listening. But interestingly, they're not just listening with their external outer ear like we are. They also have this incredible ability to be able to process infrasonic sounds. Don't chew on your trunk. You're too big for that now. Judy, you wondering why elephants will eat bark? Is it to help with digestion? I don't think it's to help with digestion. I think more importantly what they're trying to do is intercept nutrients that are being transported from the roots of the plants in the bark up to the leaves. So the bark is the transport system for trees. That's where all the not only liquid from the roots but also nutrients from the soil are transported up to the leaves. So at certain times of the year you'll notice elephants stripping the bark off trees, predominantly the knobthorn trees in this area. I can't remember what time of year it is, but it's definitely a time of year that they'll be doing that, and that's obviously when they know the nutrients are on their way up. At other times of the year, especially during winter, there's not going to be too much transportation of minerals and nutrients from the roots up to the leaves, because most of the trees are actually kind of lying dormant, waiting for the summer months. So it's merely to just get, yoga. I'm not sure what move that's called, but that is definitely elephant yoga. Shame, she's trying to scratch herself, it appears, but she obviously just can't reach that little fold. You need to find a branch to rub on. Get a branch between those back legs and then reverse forwards and backwards over it. It appears that's going to be your best bet. Let's see if she doesn't go and look for a branch now to do just that. Hello, Will. You'd like to know how long will elephants live for? And around 60 years is the average age that I'm told. I would love to be able to know more individual stories on elephants, some that have lived for maybe 80 years. Who knows? There's always kind of random outliers, and what causes elephants to die younger, if they do in fact die at a younger age than 60. But 60 is the general kind of rule or general age that is given in the old textbooks. The thing is with an elephant, Will, and more so than other wild animals, is that they're very difficult to follow. They don't have territories. There's a lot of them. So to follow the individual life of a leopard is going to be quite tricky. It's possible, but tricky in the wild. Of an elephant, whoops, I've got leopard on the mind. I just heard a tree squirrel alarm calling, possibly that's why. I'm hoping it is a leopard not too far away. So yeah, well, it would be wonderful to know kind of more individual stories on elephants, but sadly, due to the fact that they move huge distances, they're not bound to a territory, and they do just live for so long, it would be quite an understudy to follow the life of an elephant. Alrighty, I think I'm going to have to reposition. We're not in the best spot anymore, although there are some on our right hand side here on the opposite side. Although it's no, actually Senzo's sniping some good views there, but those ones are moving off. Scarlet Sky, you'd like to know if elephants are clever enough to remember human faces. I don't have a clue. Again, it would be tricky to. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we would be able to work that one out. Scarlet Sky. It would be tricky to ask them, and there's a possibility that maybe a captive hand-reared elephant may be able to remember whoever reared it. But then again, I'm not sure if that's going to be just from sight or also from smell and also from the audio, the voice of its rearer. But I think in the wild they'll have little or no reason to or need to or ability to be able to distinguish one human from another. And the thing is, even if there are reports of captive scenarios like that, I don't like to mix captive research with wild animal research, although sometimes, this can be something to learn from there, but it's just such a different environment that the animal's living in that it doesn't really, in my opinion, make sense to take too much from research done with captive animals. Okay, interesting. Well, thanks very much, Samuel, who's provided us with some more information on the longevity of elephants. And it seems like the African elephants, both the forest elephants and the elephants that we are viewing here, the kind of regular plains elephants or savanna elephants, will live from anywhere between 60 and 70 years, whereas the Asian elephants only live for around 50. So that's quite interesting, that there's quite a big difference between the ages of both African and Indian elephants. Okay, we are going to have to reposition now because we no longer have any good views. Oh, I can't believe how cold I am. I never thought I'd be saying I'm cold in the Sabi Sands in summer. Oof. Next time I must bring another blankets. Yeah, especially after yesterday's sweltering heat. Hopefully we get a whole bunch more rain between the drives and then it clears up by the time we head out on the sunset safari. Oops, excuse me. Marius, you would like to know, when was the first ever Safari Live broadcast? Well, it's a tricky question to answer wholeheartedly because it's an experience and a product that has developed greatly over the years, and some of the viewers who will be watching today will remember the times when there was only, I think, 80 people that could log in to Safari Live, and those 80 people, so I don't know how the queuing system worked or how people got chosen to be in the elite 80, but once you were chosen as one of the elite 80, all you got to see was a JPEG image being uploaded every 30 seconds or a minute. So it was just a photograph being uploaded every minute or 30 seconds, and there was a limit to how many people could actually tune in to get those updates. So that was many years ago. And then prior to my starting at the end of 2013, there were quite a few live safaris done, some here on Juma and I think some also in the Timbavati. But the quality of those broadcasts was nothing like it is now. I think the pictures were not nearly as high definition. The technology basically available back then just wasn't really great. So I'm not too sure exactly how it worked pre-2013, but what I can tell you is since November 2013, basically every single day since then, we have been doing these live 2-3 hour broadcasts daily. Sorry, 2014. Forgive me, sometimes I skip a year, forget a year. So it was at the end of 2014 that we started doing that. So it's almost been 3 years of constant day in and day out drives. Prior to that, I think Safari Live would do like a 6-month stint or a 3-month stint, and they'll do like kind of little projects and invite everyone in. But it wasn't. It was very much in its infancy back then. Doesn't help you hugely. I haven't given you the best stats and facts and dates, but you get an idea how it's definitely been progressing over the years to what it is today. There are lots of elephants dotted in this little valley-like riverbed to our left. Only catch as we are kind of moving in the same direction that they're moving now, so it means we're only going to see their bottoms, which we want to try and rectify. But it's going to be tricky. I don't want to scoot through the herd just yet, so we're just going to have to settle with the rear end views of these guys. Yeah, I wonder what these elephants think about the lack of rain and how much they, take into consideration with regards to the abnormally dry and bleak conditions we're experiencing here this summer, and if they're kind of already planning where to head next, or how do they get messages, or how do they know where to go from here? Do they just guess where there might be more food as and when everything gets exhausted here, or if they just take it kind of more on a day-to-day basis? But as a human, I can assure you that things are not looking as they should for this time of the year. Noelle also noticed, having spent a week or so away from the reserve on her leave, as soon as she came back, she immediately noticed how much drier it had become in her absence. Cleaning off the grass, making sure there's no sand before she put it in her mouth. Mobile Paddy, you'd like to know if there's two different elephant herds in the same area, will they kind of huddle up? Elephants generally kind of huddle up when they're seeking shade. So they'll huddle under a tree while they're snoozing, kind of midday. So that is a time that elephants will huddle, and yes, I guess multiple herds may huddle under a shady tree. It's not uncommon for herds to come and go and kind of intermingle, join up, split up. There's no set rules, and often it's very difficult for us to tell whether it is two separate herds or if it is just one herd that's kind of splitting and rejoining. I certainly don't recognize this herd of elephants, and again, they do move huge distances. They're not bound by territory, so it makes it very difficult for us to establish exactly what is going on within the herds. Very good. I'm probably going to leave these guys be and keep trying to search some of the roads for any sign of our spotted friends. And while we do that, we shall send you back to Noelle for an update on how she's getting along.
Scott, I am now traveling northeast along the eastern side of Chitwa Airstrip. there's not much going on, unfortunately. There is a sighting of a cheetah over on Nkuru. There's lions over on Nkuru. And then there's a leopard spotted in a little Gowrie near Vessels. But all places, unfortunately, we don't traverse. So we will just have to wait for them to come into areas where we do traverse. Now, I would be super keen for that cheetah to come across and say hello to us. But I think it's pretty deep inside Nkuru. Nkuru borders the Kruger National Park, so most of our cheetah activity in the northern sands comes in from Kruger and then goes back into Kruger. We at the moment in the northern sands, as far as I know, don't have any resident cheetahs, unfortunately, and that has a lot to do with the fact that we have very high leopard and lion populations here. Now, in general, the whole cheetah population in the Lowveld is low because in the whole Lowveld the lion and leopard populations are high. So basically the lion and leopard populations are peaking, and when they peak, then the cheetah population goes into a valley, and then when the lion and leopard populations come into a valley, the cheetah populations will start peaking again. And then the spotted hyena populations, as far as I know, in this area have been pretty consistent and stable, not too many peaks and valleys. I do know some friends of mine that work in the southern sands. They have a lot higher concentration of spotted hyenas than we do here, and get some crazy interactions with some huge clans. So we've been looking for tracks. Nothing. So now I'm checking areas that we border on our ability to get signal on the eastern side of Chitwa. So we actually have a chunk of Chitwa that's just here on my eastern side, but it's very hard for the signal to get that side for us to transmit. It has a lot to do with the type of vegetation that's here. It's really thick. It always amazes me. We've got this little warthog tail that sticks out the back of the vehicle that gets the signal. But if there's too much dense vegetation like you see here, it actually does affect our ability to be able to transmit. So the trees do play a role in what we can show you and how we can show it to you. I'm still just amazed. I mean, Scott was talking about the start of Safari Live. I'm just amazed that we're even able to do what we're able to do. I mean, when I started guiding, people barely even had cell phones. Now you've got cell phones running. It's absolutely crazy. I love it. And on the YouTube, for that matter. Haha! Joy, you're totally reading my mind. So there's things that I think about before game drive, and then I get lost in other conversation. I forget about them. So Joy, this is very interesting. You're wanting to know, was I able to determine the sex of the cub after game drive yesterday? So Ferg and I, after we wrapped, Ferg and I sat for a while and did some filming. Watch them play around with each other, and then Tundi went up onto a little bank and called the cub over, and then they sort of cuddled with each other a bit, and then they ducked down and went out of sight, and we left them because Tundi was really amazing and gave us a really excellent sighting. So then obviously got lots of photos because I try not to take photos when we're on air. Obviously I'm busy with you guys, got lots of photos, and I was looking through them, and there was a question that came through yesterday when we were doing the action broadcast about, oh my goodness, the paws of that cub are so big. And I was saying, yeah, when they get a little bit older, sometimes you can start telling that it's a male by the size of the paw. Now, I always forget, again, I'm still new at Safari Live, I always forget how detailed it is on screen compared to what I can see with my eyes. And so I was going back through my photos, and I was like, yes, but those are big paws, but exceptionally big paws, not just I'm going to grow into them paws. And then I got one or two shots where the cub was on by itself on top of the log and turned around, and I could see a slight bit of yellow under the tail. So Tristan, my dear, I love you, and I know that you think it's a female, but I'm going to have to disagree. I think it's a male, but we're only going to be able to really tell as we keep watching. So Tristan is saying female, I'm going to say male, and then I think we're going to have to place bets. I think we're going to have a bet going with this. I'll be interested to see which side of the bet Scotty D wants to get on, but I'm going to go with a young male. That's my my story there. And then James Richard, thanks you so much. You were so nice to send me through all of that information on my Instagram about Tundi and her cubs. And then I had it pulled up on my phone so that I could go through it with everybody, but unfortunately I've lost signal. So this is what I can remember. So Tundi's round about 11 years old, as far as I know, and we were discussing yesterday that she's had 5 litters, but only 4 of those cubs from the 5 litters have managed to reach it to adulthood. One is Tamba, and one is Kachava, I believe, if I'm remembering. Then there was 2 others whose names, I'm so sorry they're escaping me, but James Richards, if you're watching, you can maybe send through that information on Twitter so everyone else can read it through. One was killed, and the other young male went and moved off and found territory inside of Kruger. So that's the background that I got for everybody in case anyone was interested and wanted to know. I also really enjoyed yesterday how much interaction we got out of that action broadcast at the end there. It seems as if Safari Live is growing in leaps and bounds, and it's absolutely fantastic to see. I think that, look, we are here for entertainment, and we entertain you guys as best as we possibly can, but it's also a peek into the world of conservation, into the world of wildlife in Africa, and the more people that come and watch us, the more people that are going to fall in love with this, and hopefully that means that we carry on and get to continue not just doing Safari Live, but that these areas continue. I always tell my guests when I used to work in the lodges that it's really important that they keep coming and doing the visits that they're doing, because them being here is the whole reason why not only myself and my tracker then had a job, but why these places exist. Because unfortunately in conservation we have to make money, and the things have to be worth something, unfortunately, and by coming here as a guest and by watching things like Safari Live, you're helping out immensely, more than you could ever do by giving, $10 or 10 euros or 10 pounds or 10 rand a year to some of the organizations. This really is a huge thing. So thank you, everybody, and kudos to you. I hope everyone's enjoying their Boxing Day. And then if anyone's just joining us, don't forget, on Safari Live, we are live, 100% live, and we are interactive, and you can send through questions, #Safari Live on Twitter, or if you're watching us on the YouTube, you can send it through on the YouTube chat. Now, there's a little area up here that I sometimes lose signal with. There's a bit of a dip, so just excuse me if I lose signal there. I don't know where our silly little leopard friends are today. I'm sure that in the rain last night and the wind, they managed to kill things and hoist them in trees, and I'm just not picking up any tracks because of the rain, or I'm just looking in all the wrong areas. Who knows? I did give you the update earlier about all the other sightings that the guys are having on other parts of the northern sands here. I think what we might do, since we've done most of Chitwa, and we've done a bit of our west and a bit of our south, I think we might go up to Biffle's Hook Dam. But I'm debating on that one. We'll have to wait and see. I haven't fully decided yet. I'm also keen maybe to rework that Cheetah Cutline area where the guys were saying, so last night Tingana was seen on Torchwood Access, and then he moved southwest. So the guys were saying might pop up on Cheetah Cutline if he decides to move more west, but it's also possible that he's still just in Torchwood. Smaller, the same thing happened to Mvula. The same thing happened to Mvula. So Tingana is one of our resident male leopards, and Mvula as well, both territorial, both getting on in years. We're not 100% sure on Tingana's age. He's between 10 and 12. Mvula is roughly about the same age as well. And so they're getting on in years, and then there's young males like Hasana and Tamba that are carrying on and becoming stronger and might push out some of the older boys and become the dominant males of this area. Or they might be pushed on. Tingana and Mvula might keep going the way that they're going and push on out Hasana and Tamba into other areas. It's very normal for leopard territories. Now, something that we haven't seen in a while is Birmingham males. I would like to see them. Ah, James Richard, thanks. Wabayiza was the cub of Tandi's that was killed, but he was older when he did it. And then next, just say the second one again that begins with a B. Bafuti. Bafuti's the one that moved over into the Kruger area. Thanks, James Richard. Yeah, Bahuti. Ah, not Bafuti. I said an F. Bahuti. Sorry about that. Thanks, James Richard. You're always good with the information. I appreciate it. Nothing is happening this side. Even our little impalas have gone off. Morning Glory, you say please go to Biffleshoek Dam. All right, Morning Glory. That's where we're headed. We'll go. It's going to take us a little while, but we will head up there. We'll meander that side and go and check and see what's happening there. It's going to be a little bit bumpy as we head up with these corrugations. So corrugations happen on access roads where people drive too fast. All right, so I'm just driving and Scotty D is also just driving, and let's see if Scotty D's just driving manages to accumulate in something to see.
I found a jacket, which helps because it's freezing. It's just a raincoat, but it's an extra layer, at least. And hoping that something exciting happens at some point in time to try and take my mind off the cold weather. But for now, no leads, just driving, hoping that the more ground we cover, the more likelihood we will have of actually finding something. Very good, so we kind of just cruising about. Animals that we could bump into here are Shadow and or Tandi. They're both kind of overlapping quite a lot at the moment as they establish who is going to acquire which portion of their mother's territory. If any of you are joining for the first time, it appears that the old resident female leopard from this area, a leopard called Karula, has disappeared, and she's been gone for so long now that a lot of us believe that she is dead, and therefore it means a whole leopard territory, or territory of a leopardess rather, female leopard, has become open to the neighbors, and two of her neighbors were actually her daughters, and now they've kind of started moving into this area a lot more. And I haven't established yet, I haven't been here long enough, I've only been here for the last month, so I'm not too sure exactly who's spending more time where, and leopard territories do change, they're forever changing ever so slightly, and because I've been out of this area for quite some time, I'm not too sure on the exact finer details of who's spending time where, but interesting times. We had an incredible scene with the two sisters kind of facing off, whilst one had a kill, a duiker kill, and it appears like the one who was kind of waiting patiently hoping to get some of that kill did end up getting it, and how it ended up getting it, whether they had a fight or what exactly happened, we aren't too sure. We weren't there when they had that altercation, sadly, because that would have been incredible to witness and understand who was maybe more powerful or more dominant out of the two. But we may still get one or two more opportunities to get lucky with regards to that. Alrighty then, where are the animals hiding? Hello Koresh, you are suggesting that wouldn't it be better for the population of leopards in this area if in fact a new male comes in after Mvula and Tingana to bring new blood into the system? And yes, most certainly, for genetic variance that would be useful, and it ordinarily will happen. You know, male leopards will move quite big distances, not all of them. I mean, Kruger and Quarantine are still relatively close by, and it's not uncommon for there to be a slight amount of inbreeding, but there's always kind of some new blood coming in. What's also interesting is that from one litter of leopard cubs you may have two different fathers. So leopardess will mate with multiple males, not all the time, but quite often when they are in season, which means, I'm told, you can get one mother with two half brothers, essentially, or half sisters or half siblings, because one male's sperm will fertilize one of the eggs and another male sperm that she mates with later will fertilize one of the other eggs, therefore causing two of these siblings already to not be genetically from the same father, which already gives you an idea of how there is already genetic variance happening. And I guess, you know, Mother Nature takes care of these things. You may get periods where an abnormal amount of boys will stay close to their natal area and therefore increase or decrease the genetic variance, and then it may be a period where there's no males being born to that area and it's just females, and then males come and fill that void from far and wide. So, you know, in an ecosystem this big, I don't think we have anything to worry about. We are part of the Greater Kruger National Park. It's not just the 60,000 hectares of the Sabi Sands that we are a part of, but the 3 million hectares of the Greater Kruger National Park. So I see what you're saying, but I don't think it is an issue. In smaller reserves, definitely, where animals you know, need to be brought in and taken out by humans because the area is simply too small to naturally acquire that genetic variance, there, yes, definitely, but here I don't think there is any need for that. Again, I must reiterate that I do kind of hear what you're saying. It does seem like quite a few males are lurking close to this area, but it's just possibly the fact that there have been a lot of males born to this area recently. Very good, we need to rush you off to Noel, who's got a hornbill on the ground.
I do. I have a hornbill on the ground, and it is a ground hornbill. So they were up on a termite mound hunting, eating termites, and then came off. To me, I can only see three. You've got the one here. This is one of the adults, and then there was a juvenile, a little teenage one that went back into the bushes with the other male. They're sort of meandering slowly in and out of the trees there and picking up things to eat. They'll eat giant land snails and snakes and insects. They've got quite a varied diet. Just out of view now, unfortunately. But very neat. One of the endangered bird species that we see in this area. I just want to see if maybe up another view. Kind of just see that one. Fergie must just tell me if I must stop through the back there. Yeah, we can try there and see if we can get another viewing of them. The one sort of moved to the back here just at our 3 o'clock, and then it's slowly moving up, and there's going to be a gap at our 2 o'clock eventually. No, more to the right there. That should pick up eventually, but we'll just sort of scan and see if we can find them again for you all. We had them yesterday morning making their hoot toot 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 sounds and sitting on top of the trees there, but that grouping looked a little bit larger. Yeah, I can just see that one through the back end there. Not on the screen, unfortunately. There, just through those dead branches at the back. There's the juvenile. Moving off, notice how he doesn't have any red. It's a little bit more of a bluish tinged beak and then a little bit of a yellow around the face. A little bit difficult to keep them in focus. There's so much brush in the way, unfortunately. There we go, and then off into the great blue yonder, but that's still a wonderful sighting. We've had a really amazing birding morning. This morning it's been quite good. We're coming up. The elephants have left us a present in the road. They've decided to put a roadblock out. They don't want us using this bit. and unfortunately it's going to be too big for me to move myself. When we can, we will move branches and things across the road, but this is a big tree. So I think let's head on over to Scott, who has the Ellies that possibly made this damage, and see what they're up to.
This tree, this bull, stay on this bull here. Oh, hello everyone. I was hoping this Ellie bull was going to come and push up against this marula tree and shake the fruits from it, but he veered off at the last second. And we've come across another herd of elephants. Interestingly, these ones also seemed on our arrival to just be a little bit in a funny mood. So I wonder if it's not the weather, or maybe it's the infrasonic vibrations that have allowed a whole bunch of these elephants to communicate to one another, and maybe there's some bad news on the elephant airwaves. Who knows? They have seemed to relax now though, so that's the good news. I always am a little bit cautious of these beasts. As relaxing and peaceful as they can be to view, they can also be one of the most terrifying animals out here when they are in a bad mood. But they seem to be all calming down right now. Seems like we've got a little youngster up ahead here that's trying to play with its bigger, older cousin that's sadly just gone behind a bush. But let's wait and see what happens with them. It looks like they are indeed quite playful. That youngster's picking on quite a big cousin to play with, almost double the size. Sadly, they keep disappearing behind the bushes, but hopefully they'll pop out at some point. Anna-Marie, you'd like to know if there's any common parasites that cannot bother elephants, and oh, they've come out. You're doing some exercise. Oh, they're such cool animals. And Marie, I'm guessing some of the smaller ticks, you know, not all ticks will be able to possibly suck the blood from elephants. It'll only be the bigger ones with big enough mouth parts to be able to penetrate the thick skin of elephants. But I can't think of any others. Maybe the biting flies that bother us don't really bother them, also that bother the lions. I'm not entirely sure. What I am sure of though is that these guys are looking like they're going to stream right past the vehicle, so we're in a good spot here. Now let's keep an eye on this little cute baby and see what it gets up to. It seems like it's doing a fairly decent job with its trunk there. Considering how young it is, it's got very good control over it. It can take them a little bit. Oh, you very neat. Perfectly plucking little mouthfuls of delicious green grass. But like I said, they can take quite some time to get the hang of that very complex nose. But that one's making it look easy. Okay, so we're going to keep quiet here now, and as soon as these Ellies start walking past us, we're going to try and get to see if you can hear them. Oh, there's a youngster here. Hopefully it'll throw some sand on us. Please do that. So I'm just going to keep quiet for now. It's quite a windy day, and you can also hear their little footsteps as they move through the vegetation. It's interesting. I'll be interested to know which ones you're hearing. Some of them sometimes out of screen are making more of a noise than the ones we're necessarily looking at. And then another thing to factor into the equation is that the mic that picks up the audio is kind of directional, so it'll pick up the majority of the audio that the camera is pointing at, but not all of it necessarily. If a louder noise comes off to the periphery, it'll pick that up. It's one of the most tricky things for us to get right is getting the audio levels as I hear it for you guys, and it's generally softer, sadly, so you generally can't hear as well as we can, but it is something we're working on, and it is something, again, with as technology gets better, they hopefully will become better. Now this is a bull that's come up and he's investigating this female, taking a good old sniff to see if she's possibly going to be coming into season soon. No tact there, really just barged in and just testing with no hidden agendas here as to what his intentions are. He's a young bull though, certainly not a monster, and I'm guessing he would get bullied out of the way if in fact the female elephant was coming into season. He does seem to be following her quite closely though, so who knows, maybe he knows something that we don't, or that rather some bigger elephant bulls don't know. Well, we haven't had a day of leopards, but we certainly have had a lot of elephants around, so that's the good news, and I love the way each day is just different out here. Robert, you wondering if in this cooler weather the elephants will be a little bit more frisky? I mean, I guess maybe it's the wind that I think's possibly unnerving them a little bit and causing them to be a little bit funny. Cool weather should just make their lives a little bit easier and allow them to move more freely into the hot hours of the day without worrying about having to rest up in the shade. And I guess for the youngsters, they may have a little bit more of a spring in their step. They may be a little bit more energetic on a cool, cloudy day like this. But in terms of me being nervous about them and them being a little bit nervous about us, I guess it's a two-way street. I don't think that is related to the cold weather. I would say more so the wind. Wonderful. Let me just reposition again so we can get a better view. Rishi, you'd like to know what is the largest herd of elephants ever recorded, and I think there's records of, you know, whether it's one set herd being led by one matriarch, I'm not convinced, but of scenes where 500 or 600 elephants were moving together, you know, through parts of Africa. This was a long time ago, I think a lot, you know, before us humans started populating like rats and destroying the planet, basically. But yes, and the same goes for a lot of different species. There used to be migrations that used to happen in South Africa where our springbok used to, there were records of springbok walking past one given spot for 3 days, just a never-ending herd of springbok. So there's lots of things that used to happen. Oh, hello. Not just here in Africa, but in all of your home countries that no longer do. And I think massive, massive herds of elephants were a reality back in the day, as well as lots of migrating animals in various parts of the world. Thankfully, there are a few little areas that have been protected, and you still get that happening. But for the large amounts, I think it's fair to say that there's just simply a lot less wild animals than nowadays than there used to be, for obvious reasons. Very good. Well, Noelle has made it to her next waterhole for the morning. Let's hope it's as productive as the one at Chitwa was.
I'm almost to Bivelshoek Dam. I also hope it's as good as the last one, but we'll just have to wait and see. Also busy checking for tracks as we meander. I can't talk today, everybody. I'm sorry. It's the cold, and it's gotten more cold since we are in Game Drive and with this wind. As I meander in towards this dam. Or it's this after Christmas haze. You never know. It's the Boxing Day haze. I hope all of you are snuggled up warmly in your homes with your family and friends. That's what I would definitely be doing if I was on holiday. Actually, no, I'm lying. I would probably be on the beach somewhere. That's where I would be, drinking fruity little cocktails and laying in the sun. But We got leopard cub last night, so I would not give that up for the beach at all at any point. Now, as we're getting towards the dam here, I'm wondering what might be in it. I think maybe you all should let me know what you think would be around the dam, or hope that would be around the dam, or possibly in the dam. Don't forget, you can send through #Safari on the Twitter, or send it through on the YouTube chat. There's lots of signs of elephants. There's elephants dung everywhere. It's not the freshest. I think all the Ellies are over by Scott. He's the elephant whisperer for today. Now, something I would like to see now that we're thinking of Ellies, and then I was thinking of the beach, is I would really like to go up to sort of Western Africa and just south of there and go to areas where forest elephants are and then watch them. They sometimes come out to the beach and swim in the water. I would love to see that. And there's also places in South Africa where hippos move out of sort of the St. Lucia, Isamalingo area and move out of the estuaries there into the salt water. I would really, really, really love to see that as well. Would like to tick off my list at some point. I think my big mammal spotting for this year was, I've seen one Sharp's Grijsbok, which is very similar to a steenbok. I saw one many years ago, but this year when I was in Mozambique visiting some friends of mine, I got to see several Sharp's Grijsbok, which was very, very cool. We don't get them in this part of the sand, but you sort of northern end of Kruger and then east into Mozambique. All right, I can see the water of the dam. No tracks as of yet. In the water. Seems as if we have some gremlins following us to the dam. I know that you all turn into terrors when it's raining, but I'm no gremlins today. I'm not in the mood. Seems as if our dam lit back and I can just see one. Ferg, do you see where the tree makes a gap into the back and you can just see the nest on the other side forward here? Now he's up. Now he's directly at our 12 o'clock, straight up the main trunk. There he flies over there. Now he's on that. Perfect. There's a male. Thanks, Ferg. Male violet-backed starling. Now, where he's sitting in the tree, oh, gorgeous. There you can see a bit of the reds and purples. Now, because there's no sunlight, we're not getting the absolute splendor of the iridescence of that violet back there, that plum-colored starling, but you're still getting some nice, ooh, and then, of course, he flies away to the back. Very brief, but there we are, violet-backed starlings. I can't always give everything you request, but I do try. Find it eventually. James Richard, I know that you're looking for citrus tail butterfly, the Christmas butterfly. Unfortunately, haven't seen one since you asked, but I will keep looking, that's for sure. Now we have some Egyptian geese in the dam. Of course, they're always in the dam. And then there was a hippo on the other side, but I'm not seeing him anymore at the moment. And then we've got a couple of blacksmith lapwings flying around and causing a ruckus. Other than that, it's fairly quiet here at Biffle's Hook Dam. Oh, there's the little hippo head poking out. There's one male hippo that's always in here, and then when I was up here before I went on leave, there were 3 hippos that were inside of the dam. So he seems to have found some lady friends, but I don't know if they're still around. They might have decided to move off. Now, the water level of Biffle's Hook Dam seems about the same as when I went on leave, but those mud pans drying up, as we talked about yesterday and Scott was mentioning earlier, we do need some more rain, and our rain last night wasn't very much. I don't think we got over 10 mils. I think it was probably between 5 and 10, but nothing more than that. We need a good downpouring of 110 mils, if not more. Ferg, there's a cuckoo at our 10 o'clock across the edge of the dam wall. If you go in between these two, go to the left a bit more. Left. in between those two bushes there. Keep going left. Keep going, keep going. There, straight in there. There we go. Beautiful cuckoo. So as we know, cuckoos are usually hiding. This cuckoo is out and about for us. So I'm seeing a lot of black. There's a little white tip to the tail, and it's just turning a bit, and there's a bit of a white breast there. So this is either going to be a Jacobin's cuckoo or possibly a Llewellyn's cuckoo. A Llewellyn's cuckoo used to be called a striped cuckoo because it had striping on the breast. Now I actually need him to turn around a little bit for me, or he could call and then let us know. But while we're busy having a look, you can just see that little bit of a crest and then thick long tail. But they actually have quite small bodies, these little cuckoos. And they fly down here for the summertime, but they don't make their own nests. They're what's known as a brood parasite. So they put their eggs into other birds' nests and let those birds take care of them. So I am guessing from what we can see with the white at the tip of the tail that this is most likely going to be a Jacobin's cuckoo. The Llewellyn's tends to have a black tip as opposed to a white, and the Jacob, they're roughly the same size, and we've seen just enough of the side of under his chin for me to say that there's no striping. So we're going to go with a Jacobin's cuckoo here, one of the more common cuckoos that we see. Now, one of the cuckoos that I haven't seen yet this year is a thick-billed cuckoo, or a greater spotted cuckoo. I haven't heard or seen them yet this year, so it would be nice to see them. But we will just have to keep waiting, I think. It's still early days. I can hear... Oh, beautiful. Thanks, Ferg. There's that violet-backed starling again. The male and the colorations there are looking a little bit better. Lady Starfire, you're saying how stunning this male violet-backed starling is, and you think you have a new favorite bird. They're also one of my favorites. I would agree with you there wholeheartedly. Okay, everybody, I think we're going to get a last little view there of that violet-backed starling, and then I think we're going to carry on. It seems as if the birding gods were with us today, but the large mammals were not so good. And my gremlins seem to have popped up again, so let's head back to Scott while I sort those out.
Shame. Sounds like you're having a wonderful sighting of that starling. Aren't they beautiful? And let's hope that Noel's gremlins disappear sooner rather than later. We continue to search in the hope of some new information in the form of tracks or alarm calls of any of the predators that lurk along our property, but no joy just yet. On a cool day like this, though, we could be pleasantly surprised at any moment. Leopards, even on hot days, will be active from time to time, and on a cool day like this, I think it just certainly increases the likelihood of finding one on the move. So, it's not over yet. Hello, Christina. You'd like to know if leopards usually die of old age or from predation. And I think, firstly, it's important to say that so much happens without us actually knowing. It's the same as Karula disappearing and Shongile disappearing. They could be alive, they could be dead, they could have been struck by lightning. Who knows how they disappeared and or / died. So I think it's difficult for people to actually know, whether a leopard died of natural causes of old age, and then hyena came onto the scene and tore it apart, and then a vehicle, follows the tracks, or trackers come in and they find the leopard carcass and hyena tracks and think, well, maybe hyenas killed it. And the same goes for, lions could have killed it, but they could have just stumbled upon it. So I think it's a tricky one to be certain of, but I would tend to think that more often than not, before an animal can die of old age, it will be killed by another predator. Not necessarily even a predator. Often old male lions get so desperate and delusional that they may try to catch a buffalo out of desperation, and and they're weak and old and frail, and that buffalo could end up killing the lion. So I think as a general rule, things don't die of old age out here. Barring an animal maybe like an elephant or something like that, I think most animals, by the time they get old and delusional, they will be killed by something else, and they won't necessarily die of old age, i.e. not be killed by something. But I think it's too hard to be certain, because a lot of the time, like I say, we're just not going to know. We're not going to be around to document that. So I think a lot will be guesstimations with regards to any kind of facts or stats on that. It would be wonderful to know, though. It would be absolutely incredible to know. I mean, wouldn't it be so nice for us to know what happened to Karula? Was it a male leopard? Is she still alive? Was it lions? Was it a lightning bolt? Who knows? I guess that's part of the kind of charm and the mystery of not knowing everything and coming out and not knowing where the animals are going to be or when we're going to find them or what's going on, and us trying to kind of hypothesize and come up with our own theories, letting our imaginations run wild as to what could have happened or what may have happened. Or yeah. Well, what I can tell you is that not many vehicles have been driving around Juma this morning. I can tell that because there haven't been very many fresh vehicle tracks on a lot of the roads. So I'm guessing a lot of the vehicles that do have access to traverse here have been traversing elsewhere, which means there could be some hidden treasures for us. Hello Jazzy Doodle, you'd like to know, what do the animals do when the water holes dry up? Well, something very important to remember before we continue this discussion, Jazzy Doodle, or Miss Jazzy Doodle, is that it was us humans who put all the water holes you see in the Sabi Sands are man-made, which means before we came along, there was a lot less water in this area. Now, of course, that means as a general rule, we like to think we are helping a lot of the species by providing them with water. And yes, we may be in the short term, but it's also important to remember that by creating an unnatural scenario, i.e. us getting involved, you are altering things, and sometimes we're altering things that can cause positive, scenarios for certain species and negative scenarios for others, i.e. the vegetation in this area, is going to be more heavily eaten as a general rule, because there's going to be more animals here because they don't need to be elsewhere where there's water, because we've provided them with water. Anyway, I don't want to go down this road too much, but it's important that you realize that there has, not just in the Sabi Sands but also in the Kruger Park, been a level of human interference. So there's more water than there ordinarily would be when these water holes dry out. Well, certain animals may die if they don't get to water, and drought is natural. It's a natural phenomenon from time to time. Maybe the the effects of us on the planet and the greenhouse effect and everything is accelerating things, but so it's hard to know exactly what happens. But the animals can move huge distances to rivers where they will find water, and ordinarily they would be used to doing that. It's a kind of normal problem that they have to deal with. So yeah, tricky one, but let's send you off to Noel, who's found some beautiful little bee eaters.
Hi, we do have little bee eaters, and they were sitting nice and still, and now they're just moving around, so I'm just trying to move the car so that we can try and spot them. There's one here in the dead branches at 3 o'clock that has just sort of meandered down and sat still for half a moment. I think if we try and move straight in there, Ferg. Yeah, no, just go straight in from where you are. Yeah, they're just, oh, there he flies, there he comes. Here he comes, here he comes. Oh my goodness. And then away, away. All right, there was also Sterling's wren wobbler. Oh, they're at their back now. So at 11:30 where that dead stump is, there's some flying around in there. So yeah, if we go straight and then to the right a little bit, to the right, there, here. They're flying around in the back there. Go down a bit, here, in that one. They were moving around just in there. There we are. Fantastic, thank you. Sorry, they're so little and it's such a dark shade out here that it's sometimes very difficult when they start flying around to catch them. Now, they usually do something called hawking. So they, from their perch, they go and fly up and grab an insect and then go back to their perch. And that's exactly what where you guys came to us with Scott, and then there was 4 of them and they got into a little spat. Now the Sterlings, I can still see them moving around there pretty much in the same spot doing their hawking. Excuse me one second, I've just got a cough. Excuse me. Now that Sterling's wren wobbler is a really amazing bird, and I'm very upset that he stopped calling for you, but it would definitely be something to put onto our bird list. I just want to show you a photo of him quickly. Here he is here, the Sterling's wren wobbler. Gorgeous, gorgeous little bird, and quite striped. And I thought I briefly had a visual of him, but I'm not seeing him anymore, and I'm not hearing him call. If I do see him, I will definitely try to get him on camera so that you all can see him. All right, so little bee eaters, another one to add for our list for the day. I'm not sure if maybe that helps anyone's list for the year or for Juma in general. And for any of you that are out there that haven't started a list, you must start a list. I was not very much into birding. Look, I loved birds, but I only really got into birding about 4 years ago. Now I'm obsessed, and it's fantastic. Because think about today. So Scott and I have both been looking for predator creatures. They're not really coming out. So Scott's taken over and started doing lots with Ellies, and then we've been doing a lot of birding, and we've had a really fantastic game drive. Birds are just absolutely incredible. We watched that heron stalking and his aquatic prey, and we had Egret as well trying to get into getting, and he got a couple fish for us. I mean, there's a lot of action that happens, and then also just pretty colors always. While I drive outside, a little bit bumpy. Ooh, and my hat flies off. But we have a bird of prey that is sitting at the top of this knobthorn tree, and we will just have a view and see who that could be. Looks like a snake eagle. I can see that there's no feathers on the legs, which would indicate a snake eagle. Wahlberg's eagles have feathers all the way down. Wahlberg's eagles are also a little bit smaller. It's looking like a brown snake eagle to me. Snake eagles are amazing, so they'll dive down and catch their prey and then start going back up into the thermals and start eating their snakes on the wing. And the reason why they have scales down the legs for most of it as opposed to feathers is in case the snake bites them, then the venom can't get in because the scales prevent it. If they had feathers, there would be blood flow there, and then the bird would have an issue. Now, it is chilly for this bird of prey, and it's also extremely windy. If it was windy and warm, the snake eagle would probably be hunting. I think now what it's doing is it's just sort of biding its time. We're starting to feel raindrops every now and then. Oh, and then off he goes as I say that. I don't think he's going to hunt, though. I think he's just moving to a better perch. And now he's being mobbed by a fork-tailed drongo. Is that fork-tailed drongo literally sitting on top of him, Ferg? That was hysterical. I think it grabbed onto the top of the back there. That was absolutely hysterical. Now he's trying to get a perch. He's having difficulty getting a perch there. Look, and there's the drongo. There he is, hounding him. Look at that. It's a tiny little bird hounding that huge bird. He's trying to get him to move away. I mean, obviously being a predatory bird, it's going to possibly eat other bird species, and the drongos are very good at trying to get them off. And now this very large brown snake eagle has found an extremely precarious perch. Your other perch was much better, my friend. I don't know why you flew over there. And now he's trying to right himself, and he can't necessarily just fly off, because if he flies off and catches a wrong angle in this wind, then he could do damage to himself. So he's just trying to get his balance. Drongo definitely didn't help the scenario. And he's decided, nope, he doesn't like that one. Let's try balancing over there. Now, sometimes what you'll see with these snake eagles is not just with the weather conditions, but also if they're a juvenile moving just into adulthood, they're still not as sure of themselves, so they can have trouble. This one's plumage looks fully grown to me, so I think he's just having difficulties with the gusts of wind that are coming up, and probably also just very annoyed that drongo grabbed onto his back like that. They can rip out feathers, which can affect how they fly, and being such a large bird, they're not going to flap everywhere. They need to push themselves off and flap like that and then glide, and he's decided that tree is not going to work for him, so he'll go find another one. That was absolutely fantastic. So we have, Allison, you're saying brown snake eagle, but you have a black-breasted. We have both of them here, Allison. There's black-breasted, now known as a black-chested snake eagle, and also a brown snake eagle. So two different birds. So Allison, you can tick off another bird onto your list. Fantastic. All right. I'm just asking this rain to hold off for another 10 minutes. That's all it needs to do. And then it can rain all it's want. Oh, it can have for 4 minutes. It can stay away for 4 minutes. All right. Now, I'm just going to check this little stretch here. We still haven't picked up anything on Tundi. It's very possible that she was just hiding in the thickets like she did with us yesterday when Scott went to go check. But it's also possible that maybe she went off hunting. We can't really tell without any tracks. And then another possibility, I was asked, James Richard, I think it was you that asked a question regarding why do I personally think that Tundi brought that head of that baby impala and a few of the legs back to the den. I'm actually thinking about it last night, and I was thinking about where they moved to. I was thinking it's possible that she brought it there. One, she wanted to feed on it a little bit and a little bit for the cub, but that also that she knows that she's possibly going to move the den site again, so she doesn't care if the carcass is there. That's the thought. So it's entirely possible that yesterday was the day that they were going to finish up at that site and then move on, but we won't know unless we keep checking and keep looking for her and keep trying to get a visual and see what she's up to. So hopefully this afternoon, either Scott or I will be able to find her and update everybody on that. But who knows? I also wanted to get back to a point that Scott made about possibly any new male leopards coming into the area for genetic turnover, and I would really agree with you on that one, Scott. I think that would be a good thing to get some new genes in. Paradise flycatcher. Mr. Coldwater, yes, we're right here at 3 o'clock, Ferg. He's just orange and blue with a blue head flying. Oh, perfect. Yes, Mr. Coldwater, a snake eagle is a little bit smaller than a fish eagle, roundabouts. I can triple check in the book. This paradise flycatcher is being so nice to us right now. I hope you all saw that flying around with those sort of rusty burnt orange colors and that sort of bluish head. There we are. It looks like a female. The males tend to have much longer tails to them. They make these beautiful tiny little cup nests in the little crooks of trees. Absolutely stunning. I love paradise flycatchers. And looking for insects, and now the tree that she's hopping around on has a lot of ant activity on it, and so I have a feeling that's what she's picking up. Now I'm just checking on the sizes of those birds that we were just talking about now. So a fish eagle is 63 to 73 centimeters, and the snake eagles, if I can find them. Of course I can't find them. Snake eagles, brown snake eagle is 70 to 75. So the brown snake eagle is actually larger than the African fish eagle by about 8 to 10 centimeters. So there we are. Now these little flycatchers will also use spiders' webs and moss to put around their little cup nests to hold all those little bits together. It's absolutely fantastic. If I can find one for you, I will definitely show you. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Boxing Day morning. It's been wonderful from myself and Ferg and from Scott and Senzo to have you all with us. We are going to be out and about this afternoon, and I believe the Mara will also be joining us this afternoon with Ralph and Taylor. So we're crossing fingers and holding thumbs for more excitement, more birding, more predators, more elephants, and more fun here on Safari Live in the African Bushveld.